Team mình thì có một cái truyền thống cần phải giữ. Ít nhất thì ở VCS thì team mình phải dậm chân tại chỗ, tức là phải cố gắng giữ vị trí top 1.
Đánh offline khiến em cảm giác rất là vui và hưng phấn.
Thi đấu là như những gì tụi em làm ở trong đầu tập thôi thì cái chiến thắng của tụi em chắc chắn là 100%.
Dự định mà tụi mình muốn chiến thắng ở trong playoff thì không có dự định gì cả, chỉ có luyện tập rồi mình gặp ai thì mình lụm thôi.
GAM luôn là cái đội tuyển mà mình nghĩ là cái phong độ xuyên suốt của họ luôn cao như vậy, chắc chắn họ là một cái hòn đá mà tụi em phải vượt qua.
Mọi người hãy đón xem trong vòng playoff sắp tới tụi mình sẽ trình diễn như thế nào nhé.
Welcome in, everybody, to the first day of the playoffs here in the VCS English Spring Split. We went through the entire regular season. We got some amazing games. We got a tiebreaker at the very end. And finally, all of that amazing drama has culminated in the beginning of our playoffs, where we are going to crown our MSI participant and our champion of the Spring Split here in 2023. I'm Rebel Fox alongside Mobby. We're just here for the analyst desk today, which is kind of awesome. Though we have a set of casters that are going to be joining us a little bit later. I can't wait to give them an introduction. Mobby, how are you feeling today? Are you ready for casters? We finally get a split of analyst desk versus casters. Are you ready for our first game of playoffs today?
Finally, no longer don't have to do double duty for the rest of the split. That's fantastic. But more importantly, playoffs. Super exciting, especially for some of these teams where like tomorrow's matches in particular, it's going to be a huge sort of not. It's going to be a first showing for Wales. It's going to be a second showing for SBTC. These are newish teams to playoffs. But right now we've got the old hands, the ones who have been here nearly every time. It's GAM, it's Cerberus, and this is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, and we can actually look at what happened over the course of the season, because we have what happened during the regular season, and we can show off at least a little bit of what occurred during that time period. Because as usual, as expected, as everybody realizes it, as everybody would be knowing, GAM goes undefeated during the regular season, takes the number 1 seed, and then basically had 3 opponents to pick from. I know the very last second, Wales was able to confirm themselves out of that discussion in any capacity whatsoever with the tiebreaker over top of SBTCE. But I don't think anybody is shocked when they picked Cerberus Esports, because Cerberus certainly looked the shakiest of all of our teams walking into the very end of the split. So I think that was the right decision. I don't think anybody blames them for that in any capacity.
Yeah, if you find a standings graphic, you'll see a little 1 in the wins column for MBE. That 1 win was against Team Cerberus, and because that we sort of saw Cerberus have that pretty traditional late season slump. They managed to get it together okay. They managed to sort of keep it alive well enough to actually get into the playoffs, but it was pretty close. They went 7-1 to start the split. They finished 8-6. So that sort of signals that it's been on a bit of a rough one on the back half of the split for Cerberus, and because of that, that means they need to step it up huge. They need to work out: do we move away from Drakthar because it's been rough at the back end? Do we move into Ego, or were we just in our heads? Did we need that some time off to try and get that in, or I don't know? They secured playoffs pretty early. Were they just kind of sandbagging a little bit?
We'll get answers to questions very quickly here because obviously Cerberus is getting thrown into the fire with their series up against GAM to kick things off. That's today. Tomorrow, of course, is Wales versus SPTCE. And then, of course, we continue on later this week on Sunday with the losers of both of these teams as the qualifier or as our first kind of elimination match. We actually get quite an extensive bracket here because we've got it's double elimination all the way through and through with these 4 teams, which means that you always get another chance to come back and make your reverse sweep through the remainder of the bracket. You can also see on the right side of your screen right there, MSI qualification. The winner of the spring split gets to go to MSI. We have not seen GAM there in literally years. They have been the #1 team so many times and have yet to go to MSI as this full iteration of the squads. We are so excited to have that possibility be there for the remainder of the split. But first, they got to get through our remaining 3 teams. And that's where we kick off our discussion on today's series. Because you've already been mentioning it, Cerberus is faltering a little bit at the end of the split. We have to question, first off, they were starting Huber over top of Ron OP. They're starting Drakthar over top of Eagle. Are these the right decisions walking into a series against a team who is literally the world breaker? Yeah, this is the best team of the split. Undoubtedly, no questions asked.
And because of that, and I think when it comes up towards a GAM, you have to rely on what you can peak at. And the peak for Cerberus should be Ron OP, it should be Ego. And Drakthar has done a pretty amazing job this split overall. He's been fantastic. He's overall been a much more stable force. But I think they need to really try and hit as high as they possibly can. And for me, that is with Ego. So I want to see him in. I want to see Ron OP in. He's not as flexible player, but when he's on his champions, he is an amazing player. So that's who I want in. That's where I think how you do it in team composition wise. But the others, the core 3, the ones that never change, the laners have to stand up to their opponents as well because it's always a tough ask against GAM, especially in this split mid lane. Cardi's been on a tear. Normally he suffers in the regular season. So if that's his regular season form, what's his playoffs form this year?
Very true. I mean, if we get an even more advanced version of Cardi, that's going to be terrifying. And I know you want to put a little bit of onus towards the mid lane because I'm in agreement with you specifically. I think it's really hard to try to pick out anybody, even in our playoff teams, that would be able to be put over top of Yato. Yato hasn't had the most illustrious split, probably not the best statistical split, but just from the eye test on its own, Yato has had some really impressive games compared to most of the other mid laners in playoffs and the rest of the split outside of Kadi. So this 1-to-1 matchup today should be of interest because, again, this is the one mid laner that probably has had good enough games against Kadi to say, hey, maybe they've got a shot in the lane.
Yeah, this has been a pretty good split for Yato. Last split he was really struggling to find success of anything other than the Yari, but now the meta's moved into a place where I think he feels a lot more comfortable. He's having pretty good success. He's been one of the big adopters of, say, the Vega. But as the control measures have come in, of course, Yato is going to rise up, and he has been one of, if not, he's been one of the most impactful mid laners in terms of damage percentage. For his team, he is in fact the one who is contributing the most damage out of any mid laner in the league. But because of this, and I mean, of course, I came across this matchup and I was like, why are their stats so similar? They have a very equal share of gold. They play far too many champions. They both have played 15 each, but we just see a little bit of kill participation coming out of Kati and a little bit more damage share coming out of Yato. So they're both contributing to their teams in good ways. Kill participation means that maybe a little bit more map movement from him in the early game, so he's more involved with some of the earlier kills. Good KDA as well. And then of course damage share, and that's with things like the Annie, which are a little bit slower on the damage uptake. The Talia as well, being a main play, not a super high damage champion, but still able to put out the put in the work and do a lot for his team.
Okay, so if you're GAM in this series and you're staring across from Cerberus and you know that there's a potential that Ego is going to join the Rift, maybe there's a potential that, Drakthar joins, maybe there's, Huber and Ron P. What are you really worried about? And I know that question might come off as a bit pandering towards the side of Cerberus because GAM probably doesn't deserve to have to worry about many things. But if you were worried about something against Cerberus as GAM and you were preparing for something, what would you be looking at first and foremost?
I mean, for me, it comes down a little bit to what patch are we actually on for playoffs? Don't have 100% confirmation yet. But we had a bit of a discussion, I guess, in the green room. If it's live patch 13.7, Graves is back. I think Graves is 100% back. Draktar's a good Graves player. Ego is a good Graves player. Levi is a so-so Graves player. And so that either was going to come, hit the bench immediately and just be banned out by GAM the whole time, or moving towards that sort of jungle carry style. You put Pun on a tank. Pun's fantastic on tanks, and allow him to support Ego or Draktar. That could be an angle that they haven't played against all year. And since Levi has been almost a Wukong one trick this year, that also getting a couple nerfs might make him a little bit less comfy as well.
And now I'll jump over to a Cerberus discussion too, because this is a team that's been around for a very long time, and they haven't made a bunch of roster spots. The biggest one, of course, has been like Draktar over top of Ego, over top of anybody else as we're about to step in a draft. What do they have up their sleeve that they can actually utilize to beat GAM with? Because they are not that creative. Like, we've seen every strategy this team can pull out, because again, we've seen them for such a long time. Like, what do you want Cerberus to show today that you could maybe kind of beat them down with? Is we're kind of rushing through the draft. We already got 3 picks. The Rakan insta-locked with a Zeri Levi immediately, or a Zeri, my apologies, the Zeri Sejuani immediately afterwards.
Okay, so I'm guessing by this sort of run of draft, we are still on 13-6, but it's looking pretty standard so far. We're seeing bot lane heavily prioritized, which makes a lot of sense. Artemis is a huge carry through all stages of the game, and they love getting him ahead and snowballing through bot lane. Whereas on the other side, Style, put him on a late game carry, he will be huge for GAM as it goes on. One of our reckless Style, not as impressive in the lane, but fantastic positioning later on. So that's going to come on through it. And Olaf Hover at this stage would be pretty okay. I mean, all right, 100% win rate is hard to snuff, to turn your nose up at, and Pun is our biggest Olaf player, so he's going to throw that in and dare Kiaya to have an answer to it. And not quite sure what the Olaf counter is at this point in time, so they're just going to lock in a bot laner to a support rather, to make sure they're comfortable there.
It's of interest because this has been utilized basically every single time that it's been picked has been a counter pick to a Jax, and that's been the number one way that Pun has been able to use this champion. So locking it this early is interesting to me, because the only champion that we saw that has a chance of kind of interacting with it is the Sejuani. Is it possible we're getting this for Draktar in the jungle? Is it possible they're trying to use this as a Sejuani counter specifically, or are they just that kind of intent on them saying, hey, like, we ban out other top laners, you want to grab anything that you can, we're okay with giving you Jax over because that's been one of Kiaya's kind of favorites, you're going to have to go to something else. I don't know, because again, it was a very early non-counter pick Olaf. This was the additional pick alongside the mid, jungle, and top were all positions that had availability here, and they decided to go to it. As Lulu gets locked in here for Xin, still have nightmares about the low damage that had earlier on in the split, but alongside this area, it should be perfectly fine.
Yeah, to take I'm not really sure what the real answer is to take into that, and as we can see, I guess the skill matchups of sort of what maybe things like this Fiora are going to be what Pun wants to take away, try and push Kiaya onto something that isn't going to be as side lane focused. We'll have to try and join the team fights and can get sort of run down a lot easier by the Olaf. Whereas in the other side, it's Yado being targeted pretty heavily, taking away LeBlanc and Lissandra. Bit of a strange one. Signals to me that it's, the Ahri. I don't even get to look good because it's locked in too quick. But yeah, those are your standard matchups into the Ahri, and both those off the board. Maybe you're looking at a Talia or a Veigar coming out from Yado next.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate Veigar, I think Veigar was one of the picks that people have gone to, especially Yato over the split, as a response to Ahri. And I don't hate it. I think the earlier laning phase is a little bit more difficult for Ahri to try to punish. That you control a lot of space that otherwise Ahri just gets to have in fights with the Event Horizon. And yeah, they seem to agree. So now it's just a matter of picking, do you need your jungler? Do you need your top laner here? What are they going to go to? It's still possible that the Sejuani gets flexed. And so I am curious what it is that Cerberus is doing. Are they doing a double flex between top and jungle with the 2 champions? Seems unlikely. Again, not a bunch of top lane Viego has kind of come through, so they're going to see the Olaf for quite some time. The one benefit to this is that they've had this much time to look at the Olaf and get some kind of counterpick idea, but also they've seen it for such a long time that they more or less have wasted some time as Jace the hover currently.
It makes a little bit of sense if you can land those shock loss and try and keep Olaf low enough that he doesn't want to all in, but that inbuilt sustain of Olaf is going to be a little bit hard to use, but maybe Jace can keep him at bay, keep the distance long enough, rather than try and take something that has to actually walk up and hit minions and is much more at risk of catching an axe to the face on the run, letting the run down again. So that's going to be our sort of compositions coming out. So far, it's looking to be a bit of a top side play for GAM, followed up with a style. I don't know. Lost the word, but late game win condition, I guess. Contingency plan, and
yeah. It's also wild to me because GAM actually got access to the Jace, and that's been banned from them basically the entire back half of the season because of the flex between Kadi and Kiaya. So it's a little bit strange to see that one come through finally as of playoffs, but they get it in their final rotation. Are either of these teams unhappy? I feel like we're okay with the way that the draft landed for both teams. Do you have a preference one side or the other? Because I also don't really feel like I have an opinion on that matter either.
No, I think these drafts come out pretty even. I think a lot of it comes down to how well Pun can actually influence the top side, because otherwise everyone's on a lot of comfort. Maybe you could argue Levi is not quite as comfortable on the Sejuani as maybe something else. Only played 3 games this split, but across his career he's played it plenty. So I think it's pretty much even, and we just have to see how that top lane matchup goes to sort of look for any major turning point that breaks the game.
Well, we got a balanced comp. We're ready to see these two teams be competitive in our first series of playoffs, and now for the first time to split as well, we're going to be tossing it over to our casters as Carix and Crincy waiting on the other side of the microphone to kick us into game 1.
G'day everybody. That's right, it is our first playoff series. My name is Carix. With me is the ever amazing Crincy. And you have some pretty strong opinions on this draft so far.
I actually do. I kind of hate what GAM really drafted over there, which is of course something that's a negative thing, as well as we see Renekton Plush also coming to the Rift. Cerberus definitely being a good one over there, as we see level 1 already started and already a flash from Kati being blown. Either way, GAM in this game, I think, very much relies on Kiaya, either 1v9 with his Jace pick that he has been denied of quite a bit in this split, and also their mid-jungle game access really snowballing in this early game. Really propel ahead, because otherwise I think Cerberus doesn't really fall off anywhere really. I mean, the Olaf is of course a known pick that tends to fall off late game, but not this high resource intensive changeman in the top lane, and they still keep going for it.
Yeah, fighting the Lovers lane of the Xayah Rakan at level 1, never the best idea. Ron OP did get chunked out, but Style having to burn both of his summoners, actually giving a huge lead to Cerberus' bot lane early.
And you definitely don't want them to have that. I mean, it's Artemis on Xayah and 1 OP on Rakan, one of the strongest bot lanes you can really have in the VCS in general, despite Cerberus not really being that stellar in the split overall. I mean, they still made playoffs, which they have failed to do so, I think, the last time. And them being on the 4th place, of course, kind of being thrown into the fire wing, as I think Rebel pointed out on the desk. So they definitely have a tough challenge ahead. They are the clear underdogs today. And I think if they can't even win with this draft, I think it will be a 3-0. But this draft is definitely something that I am hopeful for. And also them playing Draktar this time. It's showing that they are confident within the Draktar system to play it and don't roll the ego dice just yet, or even not at all. We will see.
I think there's something interesting just in this early game before we get into that classic VCS constant action that I kind of want to talk to you about. Because as you said, and obviously I agree with you, Cerberus, clear underdog here. No one really expects them to win this series. GAM is just that dominant. But I actually think that gives Cerberus quite a lot of freedom in a way, because there's no pressure on you. If you lose, okay, yeah, you're up against GAM. You're not expected to win that. But if you win, you're in an insane position for the rest of playoffs because you're now in that upper bracket and you can make a real run to the finals.
And not only that, you also can officially afford to lose one series because we have a double elimination bracket over there, right? Because I mean, would assume that they would lose to GAM, and either way, they can maybe, in that situation, still win a lower bracket one. I mean, we have seen some famous lower bracket ones in esports in general in the first place, right? And Cerberus, I mean, we have seen them beating SBTC, them beating Team Wales. That's not really the issue in the bigger thing. That they're definitely capable of doing that. And I mean, if they have a good start right now, even with not even winning the series, they can already make good arguments for a lower bracket one.
It's very possible, but we do have a play coming in as Kiaya, he's caught out. The Viego was here, low health on the Jace. He goes down, Punt picking up first blood. It looks like it's going to be followed with a second. And oh my word, they picked the Olaf early. And that is why they did it.
They absolutely did, but also a very huge fumble from GAM with Kiaya face-checking the situation as the bot lane is already partying as well.
We have more and more plays. This is what I said about classic VCS action, but it's led to a 3-kill lead for Cerberus. They come out swinging.
They absolutely do. I mean, I still need to talk about this first play, as we have seen here, the replay coming out for the side of Kiaya, really face-checking up too deeply into the situation and dying to Punt's damage. He also started boots and still, without these combats, that's still strong enough to fight this 2v2 skirmish in the melee department, and that's of course a great start for their side. Also the bot lane, as we see it here, Flash, Rakan, Grand Entrance coming out, Artemis hitting all these feathers, and with the Ignite, also Style falling down. Very strong bot lane play by the side of Cerberus, and they absolutely come out swinging, and already are snowballing both their side as well. They are also, as I said, not scaling terribly here.
Yeah, and you have to say, this does come back to that level 1 decision by the GAM bot lane to go into the enemy jungle, try and have a heads-up scrap with the Lovers lane, wherein Style had to burn his flash. It means he is completely powerless at level 3. There's nothing you can do about a flash Rakan engage if you don't have a flash of your own.
Exactly. That's why it's so good into these very pleasant Enchanter lanes, right? You are scaling great. You actually are. This is this one point where they objectively outscale the enemy team, right? In the side lanes. And this not really working in the early game, definitely a huge blow to them as well. Of course, Punt snowballing in the top lane, as we see. He's not really like snowballing with his items, as he's going for plate steel caps and a bit of HP in the first place. But still, that's just enough for him to deny all this poke from the Jace, to still just play for these all-ins. Look, he's double buffed. This is so disgusting for Kiai to play. Like, usually pick this Jace to have at least a decent laning phase, right? But against his Olaf, it looks so rough right now.
Put in the cage. Viego's coming in. Drakthar does land the CC. Cardi ults, but it doesn't matter because Yardo hits him with the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile.
Yeah, absolutely does. Also the evil laugh coming up by the side of Yardo, and he rightfully has the last laugh in this play. Now all lanes on the side of Cerberus snowballing. The Viego pick also having some pick in the early game where he doesn't really have to do so. Well, he's still really good well against the Sejuani. And Cardi, he has his flash, but he can't get out of this situation, as there's just enough CC on the side of Cerberus with the Vega cage, with also the Spectral Marker from Drakthar and Cerberus. Definitely a huge start to them.
And I mean, look, we may only be 6 minutes into this game, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but so far, Drakthar making an excellent case for Ego Who, as he has been perfect so far. He read Levi to perfection with the top lane counter gate, picked up 2 kills for the Olaf that is going to snowball and snowball, goes into the mid lane. I have no idea how that Spectral Maw hit. It looked like there were minions absolutely everywhere, but he does that perfectly. And now, 100%, not quite 100% kill participation, there was the bot lane kill, of course. But he's in a fantastic position, and he's gotten his team into an even better one.
And he's actually also playing Ego's signature champion, right? I mean, Viego was one of his biggest picks. It was the Viego and the Kindred mostly from the Winter Split that they actually won off, as we are here seeing. It's actually GAM going for this first wave, no contest whatsoever from the side of Cerberus, which kind of surprises me, as they definitely had like some decent chances to get the bottom priority, but you don't really have to underestimate Zebilulu all too much in this situation. They definitely can hold their own in general, despite what we have seen at the level 3 mark where they got 2v2'd. In general, still a very strong lane. And here we see the first move. The mid-jungle access from GAM, I spoke about them. They need to make some noise in the early game, and they look to do so.
Drakthar's on his way down. I don't know if he's going to get here in time as the bot lane trying to get away. Charm lands, but Artemis cleansing it well. A knock up onto Levi. Ron OP will fall. And the health bars are low, but not 4v2able kind of low. So GAM do strike back.
Yeah, Drakthon knew it. They saw it all coming, but they still doesn't mean that they actually can prevent it. It was a 4v2 bot lane dive still coming up by the side of GAM. And they at least get one kill, also getting Artemis Cleanse, a very important cooldown. And they need to punish him pre-6 before he really has his Featherstorm to really evade all those ganking situations. And it's at least like one kill for them. However, I think that's not enough. And also there's the potential counterplay in the cross map.
Kiaya trying to turn it around, just goes in onto Pun, but he's going to get run down. Needs to land the next axe. He does, and that's going to be a dead Jace. No hope here. Yado even donated the kill, and that Veigar is even further ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a second kill for Yado. Also, he on this scaling build, where he definitely still needs to have some time, despite the good early game, to really snowball into this game, where he goes for the Word of Ages plus tier combination to be kind of pseudo tanky even as a Veigar pickup and still being such a CC machine with the Event Horizon, the strongest basic spell in the game, but also insane damage output. As we have seen, why is Style shutting down Pun in the off screen? Why is Style even in the same lane?
Yeah, it looked like they just rotated up to cover the wave and potentially make a chomp at the Rift Herald. Pun just caught getting greedy here.
Yeah, it's like the Olaf classic to some extent, right? It's Berserker Rage, right? You have all these bonus attack speed and you want to abuse it when you are low HP, so you get even more of that one. And yeah, he just falls prey to a AD carry with Flash. You can just easily kill him. And that's a huge shutdown actually given to the side of Style and might just be one way in to get like the foot into the door on the side of GAM. Because in general, I just have to say their early game hasn't really been stellar in this series in particular. And Cerberus so far having the clear upper hand despite being the underdog.
It is worth saying that GAM's early games have really been nothing special this entire split, despite the lossless record. It is not the early game that has been getting them across the lines. So we'll see if Cerberus can keep the foot on the gas, because that's what really matters here. And this man in the mid lane is someone I'm really watching as the important player. He has traditionally not been amazing in playoffs, has Yado.
Absolutely, he has been known as a choker, has been the reverse choker in this one playoffs where they actually won the title, but it was a Mickey Mouse split, we all know that. But Yado in general in the split has been one of the better players, and in recent times actually, even without playoffs choking aside, but he wasn't really that stellar in general in the split. He definitely seems to have putting in the numbers in the training department and definitely being a better player as we see him just now completing his Word of Ages. Actually, he sold his Amton that he had before and just to kind of bend it, fix the power gap that the Veigar usually has around the 1 item mark. And just now can start stacking. The clock is ticking very, very early for them. And 10 minutes already starting to stack the Word of Ages is very, very soon. Usually it's like 30-minute mark and he will be very short to complete this one and potentially get this free level very early on.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they do want to continue trying to snowball him. Levi coming in. Ooh, not much he can do about this one. Yado flashing away, does get away from the charm. Is there any follow-up? No, there's not. He manages to dance his way out.
He's just better. I mean, very cocky position for him in the first place, but him only using the flash and just being able to evade the charm, evade all the important CC. I mean, the Glacial Prison hit him, but that alone wasn't enough to really get the kill. And also great play by the Event Horizon to still be able to get out of this situation. Means it's just a flash being down, not the end of the world, but of course a window for Levi and Kati to punch it within this next 5 minutes. And I think they have to, because otherwise I think the game just gets completely out of their control.
That it does, but the game is not out of control yet. It is only about a 2k gold lead in the favor of Cerberus. A lot of that is in Pun as well, who of course is just up in the top lane, bullying Kiaya, having a bit of a go at him, flashing forward, misses the axe, taking 2 tower shots. He's in a lot of trouble now. Dodges the shock blast though, Kiaya can't follow up.
If that Undertow hits, it's a very dead Kiaya over there. Not combining the flash with the Undertow itself is kind of a misplay in my opinion. I think if you time them completely together with each other, he can't really sidestep this one on the side of Kiaya, so definitely a small fumble by him. But at least he doesn't go down, so not the end of the world. But dropping this wave, not getting the kill over there, definitely something that hurts him. And we see also his adaptation in the item build. He goes the Stridebreaker route, so we can guarantee these all-ins into these range champions when they're actually happening. And then another face check.
Yeah, but Style is actually just firing back. Featherstorm coming out. Can't quite pull back yet. There it is, rooting them up. And that will just be Artemis backing off. You don't want to fight an ulting Zeri.
Absolutely not, even when your power spike is actually better. But there's
when
the
you've
cavalry.
got the boys coming in, Style forced towards Strakthar. The CC doesn't land, so Artemis goes down. Traded back to Yado, but you'll take a 1-for-1 there.
where Artemis L, I just gotta say it. I mean, usually he's the one already being the individually better ADC in basically every situation, but this one was kind of a foul from this one, not being in the position to flash this one, or even being in the position in the first place to go down to Styles DPS is something that shouldn't happen. I think he also had his Gale Force available for this play, so definitely something where he just needs to trust his boys to deal the damage. I think they wanted to funnel the kill on towards Artemis because they have seen that he was kind of struggling in the 2v2 despite the early lead, but this wasn't.
Hang on. More in the top lane. Ki having to flash.
Yeah, goes for flash trade, also ultimate being burned, but in general, just shows that Olaf still really has the power in this matchup, and that's like the thing with Olaf in general. Over the years, Olaf was known as a champion that kind of falls off, but this isn't really the case anymore, especially with him being top lane and being soft reworked, because he still gets so many resources and he doesn't really play in towards the competition that can really kill him easily. So this one.
We have a dragon fight. The Rakan locked up, but the baby cage buying so much space, and now Cerberus turning it around. Levi having to flash, going low. Will not be there for the smite fight. Drakthar will be, but Dragon resetting for now. Yado full health. Levi on an absolute sliver. Charm lands. Artemis going low. Style gets wild growth. Moving forward, trying to get that Zeri DPS going. Yado is in the front of it, taking the brunt. And oh no, they've turned it around, and GAM on the back of Style will get the drag.
They get the drag due to the indecisiveness from Cerberus, with them not really committing to either the fight or the Drake itself, so it ends up being Style on the wild growth there, just being able to basically walk away the whole enemy team with just his presence alone, and nets GAM this second Drake also just barely missing on this plating money is something that they are overall happy with. This one overall being evenly traded with 875 gold for each team, and them being down a few in gold. It's a bit more than 1k by now. I think they kind of stabilized within this game, and also getting 2 Drakes is something that they can definitely be happy about. This just now kind of slows the game down. I think that's something that Cerberus wasn't too happy about, despite their scaling being so good.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, I said it before, most of the gold lead is on Pun. Of course, he was not involved in that dragon fight, so if you're wondering how on earth GAM got over the line there, that's how. You just didn't actually have the gold to bring to bear. Artemis is behind Style fairly significantly in terms of current upfront power. And you can see it in that fight. Oh, hello.
He is, and it's actually his fault this time, but this is Levi, potentially asking Pun for a leash over there, and Pun can't really contest the Bramble back itself. Could potentially all in the Sejuani, of course, but with Style lurking on the corner, that's not a good idea. So you see Kati maybe falling to prey to some damage, and that's not a good Herald charge.
It's not, but it was just the second Herald, so I don't think they were too... Oh, no, it wouldn't have been the second Herald.
Wait, Yado solo kill Kiaya.
Oh, hello. He did. How has that happened?
That's top lane side lane gameplay. I think he
just
pressed
caught the baby cage, I guess.
It must be. I mean, even if you don't really catch him, you still just prevent him from running away. And then maybe Yado pressed all his buttons. He's Vega in the current patch, which is absolutely broken. And I want to credit Yado for this one, but he already did the work beforehand, I gotta say. And we will maybe see a replay of that one. But I mean, the observers maybe know that we know that's just Vega gaming right now.
Yeah, but I love seeing some Vega gaming, so let's have a look at it.
Yeah, he presses the cage, misses the W, hits 1Q, hit the ult, actually the auto attack, stylish play actually. I take everything back.
Yeah, that was actually stylish as hell. Yeah, I'm on board. I am a Vega gamer. Always been... Fun fact, the first skin I ever bought in League of Legends was White Mage Vega.
That's a good skin. Is it a legacy skin? I don't quite remember.
It's a legacy skin. It's a glorified Chroma, but it was also in like season 2.
Yeah, just old skins. Like remember like the Swamp Cannon or something. That's like if it would be released right now, it would be a Chroma. Otherwise, even Riot would be ashamed of it. Either way. Yeah. Speaking of this, we see Artemis grabbing this Cannon minion. He's also kind of falling behind, as you said earlier, and that's kind of the sad thing, right? He was on the stronger early game pick, got the first 2v2 kill, but still not enough to really contain Zeri Lulu as a combination itself, because they are just so strong in the current patch as well. And now it's kind of Style and him being enchanted by his team, being enabled by his team, versus everything that Yado and Pun mostly have up their sleeve. And this time, Artem is actually on the back foot. This is something that's very rare for Cerberus, and I want to see how they really play it out, because this is something that they really aren't used to.
Very true, as Yado continuing to get more gold funneled into him, as they're going to give him this solo tower. Cardi's not going to be here in any sort of shape to defend it. This is a huge Vega.
Mm-hmm. And he kind of does everything. That's the point with current Vega, right? It just actually makes him sort of tanky, and he is already a great damage champion in general, and has the Event Horizon as one of his spells, so there's not really something that the enemy team can really do against him other than hard engage him and blow everything onto him and hope he dies. Otherwise, you're kind of screwed in that situation. So he will demand a lot of attention from GAM, no matter how he really plays, unless he completely ins it, but I hope that Yado is capable of not doing this one. And it's kind of just the late game hope of Style really doing anything. Or as Yue pointed out in the chat, actually Jace in the late game on the side of Kiaya, he can definitely still do some damage, soften up all these members before they really hit the turrets or hit the objectives in general.
Ooh, Cerberus might have made a bad decision here as Yado chunked very low, but actually does manage to clear the wave, so their mid lane stays alive for now. I don't think you want to keep giving too many resources for this, with GAM rotating in all 5. I think you can just let this tower go.
You probably should, and also prepare in your mind for this next wave. It's also a good situation for GAM, relatively, I gotta say, because while they are behind, they still have this excellent poke setup. You kind of know where the enemy roughly has to walk towards, and this is, of course, easy. Even for the 0-3 Jace, right? He is on this one item power spike. He definitely still hits like a truck onto those squishy members. And who also hits like a truck is, of course, Yado, right? If Yado gets positioning, if Service gets positioning on towards his Drake, you can't really face check it. That's what they realize. It's death cap Vega already. He even skips the Service, which is a broken competition on this patch.
I love that.
And Yado wants to one-shot people. He knows he maybe has to carry this game, so he's going for it.
Yeah, and I love that. I respect the hell out of that. Yado making the call that he has to be the man this game. He's going to do his best to do it. Ooh, Cardi landing a charm. Artemis wants this one regardless. He actually missed an auto attack there onto a minion, but I don't think he would have had the damage regardless.
But there's also a small snare into the turret, I think. I remember seeing this one. And yeah, Artemis potentially with Flash, with ultimate up. It could have been a kill for his side, even with him tanking this charm. And here with Yado, of course, that's like one of those things that's in the game for a few years right now. These AP champions actually also hit like a truck on towards these structures with all this AP scaling for the auto attacks. And yeah, if he looks at the turret funny, if he looks at anything funny, that thing usually dies.
Yeah, I mean, Yado is basically playing the game of, you know, I pick a person to kill every fight as they go for the play in onto Style, but he is able to kite back the wild growth, keeping him safe.
Yeah, just the wild growth. I think I saw a flash, but he actually still has his flash up, so it was just the spark surge really buying him some time, as my screen is freezing.
Mine has as well. It is the feed, I think. So we will hopefully have some movement soon. Because I can see, it's definitely that, by the way, to our producer, who I know is listening, it's the Discord stream. Please help us. Because I can see on the Twitch stream, it's still going.
Yes, please send help. Either way, speaking of the game...
Well, there is a fight going on, casted way out of sync, because I'm having to wait through the Twitch chat delay. As Style has been taken down, Drakthar's moving forward. Can they actually get anything going? We'll have to see. As Cardi going low, Spirit rushing away. This is going to be completely out of sync. I do apologize, Twitch chat. We can't see the game right now.
Either way, this is Yado looking very, very scary, and Style going down, the most important member of the GAM composition, regardless of what you think of those champions. And this is a Baron setup for the side of Cerberus. Now it's Kiaya being the miracle man, maybe for GAM actually landing all this poke, or maybe Levi yet again being the miracle man, actually contesting this with a smite. But I don't think that Cerberus has to 5v5 this one, 5v5 this one. They just go for the fight instead.
They do move in. They've picked up the kill onto Zin. The Lulu taking down Pun very low, but is able to get out safely. The baby cage holding GAM back as well. So in the end, they don't secure the Baron, but they do get themselves another kill.
Yeah, just one more kill. Actually thought that GAM is surprisingly happy with one, I just gotta say, as I also get this mid lane turret right now. So Cerberus not actually getting the big cash in on this situation, and actually now GAM having a bit of more positioning. So at the end of the day, considering it was a lost play for GAM in the bigger sequences, they kind of got a lot. I mean, they still get this turret, and they also deny the potential Baron from Cerberus, not getting it for themselves, but still something that they can kind of live with, because as soon as Style was down, I think it's Baron time instantly for Cerberus. Cerberus thought so as well, but they couldn't really force the issue there.
It's very true, but still Cerberus just growing this lead. They did pick up that first Drake, and I know you're, you know, a bit of a critic of the Chemtech Drake. A few of our analysts have been, particularly Marby, hates the Chemtech Drake. But for Chemtech Drake, Olaf sounds kind of broken.
It does, and I just gotta say, considering the soul, every soul is a win con, right? I mean, even they're like better souls and worse souls, and Ocean and Chemtech don't really do much if you get one shot. But when can you realistically one shot like anyone in this game after durability patch? I mean, You could maybe one-shot Artemis if he is falling asleep or something on the keyboard. This could happen. But other than that, basically everyone can make up some time if they get chunked and then still get all these values from these Ocean Souls or potential Chemtech Souls. And especially like Olaf and Viego, they love stuff like this, of course. And Chemtech Drakes, Singularity also something like an Olaf sounds definitely decently strong. He has a lot of heals, a lot of shield power, and like some tenacity even without the ultimate. Definitely nice to have on a champion that just wants to hit people in the face.
Yeah, it's very, very true. As Levi going in, establishing some vision. Has to say it's been a very quiet game from him. Shirelia's pop. Do GAM want to try something here? No, it's just going to be a little bit of a tempted poke. We've got that dragon coming up in just under a minute. And GAM currently with control of the river, but Pun might want to change that.
Yeah, Pun might want to change it. And also Yado is like the biggest important member for the side of Cerberus over there. Otherwise, it actually, despite GAM having a horrible early game, they really stabilized. And Cerberus not really growing it, but it's 2k gold at the 23-minute mark, which is okay for them in the bigger picture. And Kiaya on the Jace had a very rough early game. Still now on 2 items, Eclipse plus mana, can absolutely hurt those members in these poke situations and actually contest what Yado is doing with him having a high range, but not as high as the Jace has. But here's a fight.
Oh, a catch in onto the Rakan, but in goes Drakthar using that ult onto the backside, tries to slip away, has Kiaya bothering him, but Pun's going to go in, try and make some space, try and at least make it a 1-for-1, but he can't do it. Having to flash out into disaster. Once again, GAM mind controls the enemy team into a bad fight. They take control here in this mid-game position. Can they turn one around? Cardi will go down, and now it's all on Artemis and Yano as they turn it into the 2v2.
It's a 2-for-2, but actually still in the bigger picture, disaster for the side of Cerberus. Yeah, GAM even get the dragon, and it just was, I think we will see a replay of that one later on, but this is just GAM stabilizing even more in this game, getting to soul point right now, which they, I want to say kind of don't deserve, but considering how they are really resilient and disciplined in this game, and Cerberus kind of isn't, you can argue that they actually deserve it over Cerberus, who definitely have not been snowballing the lead, and definitely they gifted early game not really paying off for them.
I love this call.
I agree.
They just TP. Yeah, they just TP'd Yado back to the mid lane, and they're just going to 3-man the Baron.
They might just be able to do this one.
I think they get this every time.
Yeah, just watch onto the mirror if Levi is in position to be strong enough and be fast enough for this one. But even with the Chemtech blast, he just isn't, right? Even the event
ulted towards it to make sure.
That's commitment, man. We love it.
I love it.
It will be done anyway. Speaking of this Heartbreaker, this was a small Heartbreaker for the side of Cerberus, as it was Drakthar being baited by the stasis from Kati and then just being him on the squishy Viego, just being in a 5v5, a very awkward situation, and Kiaya on the Jace. I mean, Juve says it all the time, still able to carry the team, but actually killing this Viego off. So Reset City is denied, Pun only walking backwards and not forwards because he can't in the 4v5, and actually accepted that this is the lost fight in general. But here's a small overextension by the side of Kiaya and the boys. Artemis getting 1 kill, Yado getting the other because he's just so fat on Vega. It was a horrible fight played by Cerberus, but considering how strong Yado still is, it ended up being somewhat okay for them.
But yeah, and I mean, Cerberus, yes, they're facing down Soul Point, but they now have this Baron. They're able to continue scaling this Vega. It's now 3 items, 6-0, 230 farm for Yado. He is an absolute menace here on the Rift, and if Pun can just buy some space for him, there's very little that GAM can do, at least while this Baron buff persists. That's a tower taken down for Cerberus. Kiaya is in the bot side, so he might be able to trade 1 tower back before anyone can respond.
And I think that's not enough for the side of Cerberus. I mean, it's a 5v4 squad with the Baron buff, and they also are ahead in overall gold in general. And still, Kiaya trades 1 turret as a consolation prize, and that's, considering how behind they are, a huge consolation prize for the side of GAM, which makes it even easier for them to play this game towards these mid to late game situations. And you remember, they traded this Baron for a Chemtech Drake, and it's a soul point.
Levi moving in onto Drakthar, gets caught in the cage for just a moment. Cardi playing distraction in the bottom side. Ron OP tries to go in, but can't quite find it. Drakthar has to flash away, but Pun will get the first kill. Onto Kiaya. There is a reset there for the Viego if he wants to move forward and grab it. Hasn't quite yet. Now he will. They force GAM running, and now they will shove down this mid lane, try and potentially crack open the base.
And this could be huge because the wave clear is not that huge on the side of GAM in general. It is very and an AoE, and the Jace just now falling down. They still have the Baron power minions. It will be an inhibitor at least for the side of Cerberus, and them actually winning this fight means a lot for them. As GAM thought that Cerberus can be caught sleeping, but they just weren't sleeping. It will be seen in the replay later on, but it was just a very good Vega cage placed on towards the TP and Kiaya, and Kardli being zoned off the fight. Pan also getting to strongman style, and style definitely doesn't want to melee the Olaf in general. So Cerberus now cracking open the base and getting a lot more structure gold. Very huge thing for them.
Yeah, they will be able to back out as well just as that Baron buff gets close to expiring. 20 seconds left on it. Levi being a little bit threatening. Cerberus really want to reset. They have a lot of gold in their inventory. They don't want to fight right now, but Levi wants to force them. I don't think he's quite going to be able to as the stun and the snare comes in. Oh no, Unofficial betraying Artemis just a bit. The Featherstorm has been forced. They're okay.
They are okay, and I think GAM is not okay to hard force this. Just playing into this kiting back Artemis Zaya there would definitely be fatal for them. It is just now Cerberus getting to reset, getting to spend all the gold they just now earned from getting all these turrets, and this of course means a lot for them. As now Artemis is back on even items against Style yet again. It's Yano being very far ahead against Cardi. In the bigger item department, he's just half an item ahead, but it's a Vega being half an item ahead of an Ari and also getting all those stacks. Look at his inventory. He's like on 294 phenomenal evil power stacks right now. This is absolutely disgusting, and he can absolutely one-shot people while still being somewhat tanky. He's just such a huge presence in general, and Cerberus still kind of had the game within their hands, but I mean, we have seen them throw games before, and we have seen any VCS team in general this splits thrown games to GAM, because GAM had an undefeated split, so that's kind of obvious, right? But Cerberus just now can prove that they definitely deserve to be in the playoffs and can challenge GAM when everyone is on their A game, which is what I want to see from them.
Yeah, but 30 seconds on a soul fight, Princey. Could be a fight that really does decide this game. 4k gold lead for Cerberus at 30 minutes, largely irrelevant. Levi getting away from the Drakthar W. As they are going to crash this wave in. GAM forced to respond to Cerberus.
And just these inventorizing cages just to make these siege situations even easier for them. It's just Artemis walking up to the turret and just clearing it out before even being contested by GAM.
Trade an inhib for drag?
I mean, they can afford it, right? I mean,
Style,
Cerberus cannot
that's
afford
a
it. Like,
disaster.
why is he so low?
Style.
It shouldn't be possible.
He was tanking the tower. He took 3 tower shots.
And this ultimately lets them not this turret. Otherwise, it would have been just a turret trade, which is of course beneficial for the side of GAM. Because the thing is, like, GAM can afford to drop a Drake, but it's just one virtual Chemtech Drake, which is of course not nice to give away in general, especially against Olaf and Viego. But for Cerberus to give away a Drake away to GAM would be fatal, right? It would just be them having the soul, so GAM can afford to go for these kind of trades. But with Style botching it like this, it ended up just being a freebie for Cerberus, just a small freebie, but still something that hurts in the bigger picture. And GAM just showing some jitters in general today. Like, from draft to the gameplay, I don't like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is not the best showing from our first place team. But I think, and this is a little bit of a broken record. I know we've been saying it a lot, but I think Yado, basically, it's down to him. If he makes a mistake, then GAM can win. But if he plays perfectly, I actually just don't see a path to victory.
I agree. I think it just falls down to Yado making this plays. I mean, he's just such a strong siege commander or just objective commander in general, with all the presence he really has in these situations. And the rest just kind of has to follow suit what really Yado's doing. And as long as Yado isn't really overextending, he should be fine in any situation. And I think Yado agrees. He just goes for the stopwatch and going for the Zonas Hourglass as the 4th item to just have one extra safety net, potentially, to play in towards GAM. Him eating this shock blast definitely hurt though, because he is getting slowed by the Cyrilus Grudge. And Warlock is in the flank. This could just be Cerberus baiting a fight because you don't want 50-50 GAM, especially not Levi.
Yeah, but Levi goes over and it's stolen by Carti! He steals it over the wall and oh no! It happens every time, Crincy. Pun moving forward, but he can't do anything. The Featherstorm having to come out. The fight is split on the top side. Yado can get nothing done. He's faced with tanks. He's faced with a job. He's going to be taken down. And GAM always managed to do it. They always managed to find a way back into the game. Yado actually still alive just for now till Kiaya brings down the hammer.
I expected nothing and I'm still disappointed. I mean, it always happens against GAM. I was speaking about it like 10 seconds ago. You don't do 50-50 against GAM. It actually ends up being Kati on the RE to really steal away the Baron. It's absolutely disgusting that this can still happen. And that GAM always gets away with it. At the end of the day, it's just 2 kills for them. Not like the biggest end of the world, but they had such a beautiful setup with this potential flank from 1OP, which still kind of fell off, but it was actually just Kati being able to steal away the Baron. Actually, Levi not using Smite, if I see that correctly on the interface. And this just now, yeah, it's just of course a one fight for the side of GAM. The members of Cerberus very much split up, and it is just, I think, 1 or 2 kills going over to them, and just some time lost. Also, the Baron not going down, Levi at least also going down to get like some sacks back to Yado, who still bought a lot of time in the situation. But this absolutely shouldn't have happened. That this is just now GAM showing their resilience, showing their mental fortitude that they, despite having a bit of a rough one in the early to mid game, or just even still until now, that they are only down if you actually explode their Nexus.
I'm so mad. Why have they 50-50'd there? I just don't understand. Like, okay, yeah, we can talk about how an Ari stole it, which means it was a missmite by Drakthar. But even if it wasn't the Ari, even if Levi had just gone in and smited it, just don't do that.
Yeah, the decision itself is absolutely baffling.
What? You don't need the Baron right there. It's not like you were mission critical. We need Baron right now or we're in a lot of trouble. Like, you could have just played, you could have just done the dance.
Yeah, it's not about getting it stolen. It's about that being like a potential steal in the first place.
Yeah,
but it
exactly.
shouldn't happen. 1OP had such a good flank situation, and you can do damage to us. I mean, you have seen it in other regions by now, as GAM is now pushing upwards and getting one inner turret over there and actually equalizing the goat lead from what I can see. And this just now being a very close game, and it just shouldn't be close. But GAM gifted this game away in the early game, giving 2 kills to Pan, 1 kill in the 2v2 in the bot lane. Also Yado getting his first kill. It looked so fantastic for side of Cerberus. The draft, the early game plan working out, them having scaling pick that counter pick the enemy lane opponent, which is something that really shouldn't happen, especially on blue side. And now it's an even game, and this kind of it kind of annoys me.
This is painful. This hurts.
I mean, on the upside, glass half full white, the barrel is about to expire, the gold is still remotely even. It will be soul point for GAM, but there's like 30 more seconds for this Drake itself, and the mid lane priority just now being established for them. Definitely something that Cerberus can contest right now, so the game is still very, very close. It is a 50-50 game by now, I would say, but it should have been like an 80-20 for Cerberus.
It absolutely should be, but as you said, they are still alive. 10 seconds on the Dragon as Cerberus are moving forward. Artemis so incredibly aggressive, using his Gale Force. That's now going to be down for any potential fight. Drakthar moving
Kati's
in. They are
also
going to try and fight them. They're not 50-50ing this one. They're trying to take a fight.
But GAM is splitting them away, right? There's Kiaya on the sideline just pushing for this top lane turret, just now going for the inhib, so it would be the 5v4 in the mid lane, but Pan is now answering him, and he is too late.
Caught, but Heart breaks away. The engage turns around onto Levi, but he's so tanky. Artemis moving in onto Style. Can they blow him up? They put him into the GA. They have to finish him off, though. Can they do that? No, he gets away, gets healed. Drakthar taken down to half health. Artemis as well. They are bleeding. On the top side, there is a fight between Pun and Kiaya. Pun actually losing that one, has to back off. Kiaya's going to continue pushing into the base as Cerberus move over to the Dragon. This one is going to be close. Kiaya now recalling, has teleport, can join the fight. The Dragon going down to 4,000 health, 2,000 health. It's about to get into smite range. There it is. Now Cerberus just have to evacuate the area. Can they find the fire escape? It looks like they can, but Levi comes over the wall, blocks the exit, and says, no, you're trapped here with me. No, he's backed off now. 1/3 health. Pun entering the fight. Drakthar doing a good job blocking any potential engage for GAM, and Cerberus will find their way out.
Yeah, they find their way out. They eventually traded for this inhibitor turret in the top lane, with Kiaya actually beating Pan by now, because he on the Jace by now, he kind of did outscale him because he's just all the war damage, and Olaf just kind of now is a champion that can go CC, but against the war damage from a Jace output, he still kind of struggled, but in performance squad fight, it was actually Style losing his flash, losing his GA, also Kali losing his GA, was a very good catch by Yado yet again to really swing at least this 4v4 situation in the favor of Cerberus, with them getting away with the Chemtech soul point themselves by now, having 3 Chemtech wakes in their own arsenal, and this just now makes the game even closer, right? Cerberus, I would say, despite this huge fumble they had earlier, a tiny bit ahead in general, just by what they really have in their arsenal, with Artemis being on 4 items, with Yado having all these 3 stacks. It is around 350 and some more on this passive alone. That's not this AP count. That's a passive alone. And it's still just fights that they can definitely be played out on the other side. And Zevi also struggles to play inside something like a Vega cage. So it's very hard for GAM to play. But they are playing it well. I just gotta give credit to GAM by now, because they definitely are still within the realms of winning this game, despite it being a game they absolutely should have no business to be in so far. But Server is now on the Chemtech soul point. Definitely getting a small reward. And now let's wait and see how this game plays out. It's absolutely close. And we didn't expect to go into the series with such a banger.
No, we did not, but a banger we've gotten. Oh, don't do it again, Cerberus.
They are.
We can't have this 2 times in a game. On the bottom side, Kiaya and Pun having a scrap. Pun is winning it. There we go. Cerberus secure the Baron. Now just get out of here. Just leave the river, fellas. Get on out. No, they're going to engage. They go in onto Levi. Styles a problem on the side, though. Yano trying to burst him out. They do it successfully. Zin going down as well as Cerberus pick up 2. Pun managing to hold his own on the bottom side as well. Against a rampaging Kiaya, he can't fight him because he'll get one shot by the hammer form combo, but is able to clear them out. Now, with a Baron, with 2 kills picked up, they can move on forward and try and deal a death blow.
Yeah, they absolutely should go for this one. And actually, Pun may be stopping Kiaya in the recall, but actually is also going for a strong push on his own some, with those 2 members falling down, and Baron also being on the table. It could just be Cerberus going for the game right here, right now. The death time is still on, and actually flip the Baron. I think they should. Go for the game right now, you might just have done it.
You have Veigar ult, you just popped Cardi's spell shield as well. You can move in, you've got so much space with that baby cage. Drop down between the towers, Levi stunned up for just a moment. Can they find anything? Can GAM fight back into this one? Levi solo goes gold, goes down, and with Zin respawning, I think Cerberus have to back off. Look at that damage coming in from Kiaya. They turn it around, they take down Cardi, but that's not a damage threat. That's merely a utility threat, so Cerberus will back off. And they fight. Oh no!
Kiaya.
OP sniped on the way out. I don't know if it's going to matter. He'll respawn before the dragon, but still, Kiaya with some excellent snipes.
And GAM absolutely holding their own in this situation, but it's definitely not easy to fight without your AD carry, without your enchanter support over there, but Kiaya especially being such a menace in these base defenses, just sniping out 1OP, also in the lower end, also Pun just going for the dive and just getting chunked down, getting to fall down, with Yano being the one who actually finishes off Kati to at least get 1 kill back on the side of Cerberus, and they tried to end the game right there, didn't even get a single Nexus to it, so GAM holds on for now. It is, of course, with the death timers respawning, it will be Cerberus with the full man squad, but GAM now in position to secure this vision around this Chemtech Soul Drake for both teams by now, and this is of course something that they really want to work around. Both teams having their poke element, with Kiai being on the one side, Yado on the other side, and they definitely want to contest all these vision areas. It is now GAM with the upper hand in this area. However, Cerberus still has Baron for more than 40 seconds, so they can still easily secure this mid lane priority. Also with the inhibitor being down, it should be done on its own as well, and they have now some time to move inside the Drake area.
They do. Cerberus, 30 seconds out from Dragon, are in a fantastic position. Their Baron buff will time out just before it spawns. So they want to try and leverage their minions to be in a good position, but Kiaya and Kati making sure that the side lanes actually heavily favor GAM. We might actually have a bit of a race coming in. Levi's moving towards the base.
Yeah, Levi is. So they are giving away this Chemtech Soul Drake, and now it's just Pun having to defend against Kiaya and Levi as well. The inhibitor will of course fall and will just be potentially Cerberus rushing down this Drake and then going for the defense.
I don't think it's going to work. Now,
I also disagree. It's Chem Soul. Yeah, they are not synced at all for the side of GAM. They aren't really syncing it together with the push, and Pun could easily at least wave clear this one at this Nexus turret, so they aren't really diving in Olaf. I mean, it would be an insane call for that of GAM, and I think GAM went for a trade that could never have worked out.
We do still have an inhib now down when the Baron will spawn, but that's 2.5 minutes away. That's 2.5 minutes of Cerberus with Soul Dratha. Be careful, mate. You need to think really hard as he will move forward, sees the charm. It doesn't land. He dodges away.
But he didn't really see the charm inside it. It was just Kati missing this one. And it's kind of an awkward situation, but they were trapping for Draktar, but Draktar was also invisible, so kind of no one really seeing the other one, but they also kind of sniffing it out that there was something about to happen. But at the end of the day, not really anything happening, and this, in my opinion, a very huge win for Cerberus for now at least, for Chemtech Drake and the Chemtech Soul. Soul is being labeled as the weakest soul in general. So let's wait and see how it really plays out. It is a Chemtech soul, of course, on Olaf and Viego of all people. So yeah, maybe something to write home about on their side, as the next Baron will spawn in more than a minute actually, since this shouldn't be a flip for the Cerberus side. I mean, they definitely need to work on their control overall, and this game, now an absolute banger. It's just such a great game to start off the series with, and Cerberus definitely holding on more than we initially expected, but they also showing like the usual Cerberus side where random people get picked off, where they just go for a flip that shouldn't be a flip in the first place, and them just not snowballing their lead. So if GAM wins this one, they can't be too mad about it either, but they definitely will be if they lose this one.
It's interesting. Sorry, I shouldn't say interesting. The big problem here for Cerberus is that they don't really have anyone that can 1v1 answer Kiaya. He's now a full build Jace. He has well and truly outscaled this Olaf. Not that I think Olaf falls off, but Jace absolutely scales hard. He can just stay in the bot lane, and he potentially forces two people to answer him, or even if it's just Pun that tries to clear the wave, if he misplays that at all, we may well just have Kiaya end the game.
I agree. I think maybe Yado could 1v1, but you don't want Yado in the side lane. That's just not a good idea in general, because Yado is one controlling those 4-man squads, 5-man squad situations. And if Yado is going for the side lane answer, you already won on side of GAM. And now Kiaya getting hit by one other tower.
Baron, and you're down in the bot lane.
Yeah, Cardiff there as well, but he doesn't have a TP. Kiaya has, so that's also one thing that GAM can just do, right? They use his TP advantage from Kiaya, while he's the one running people. He can absolutely draw the map apart to some extent and make it hard for Cerberus to really contest anything. And Kiaya could join this team, so even if you answer Kiaya and can do it in the 1v1, he can just TP to his team and force a 5v4 situation.
I think GAM might have checkmated here. Cerberus has to roll the dice. They have to engage like right now. And they don't have Yado. This is a disaster.
Nah, then they are not forcing the Baron itself, and that's just 2v2 in the bot. Actually, Yado's doing what I just not that. He's not going for the multiple squad engage. And
Levi,
just
if
the
Levi
zone.
steals this, it's an absolute disaster, but don't let him. Well done there. Cerberus will secure the Baron. They go in. They actually kill Cardi. They kill Levi. Okay, I was wrong about checkmate. He was very much not. As Pun now running Kiaya down. Can they land anything more? They can. It's the nuclear missile going in. He'll res on the baby cage. Shut down. 3 members of GAM are dead.
Yeah, 3 members of GAM, but that might just be the Cerberus actually going for the checkmate on the side of GAM this for now. 3-4-0 for them. They actually get the Baron. Beautiful this time that it looks like they will 50-50 it. But then, yeah, of course, this is the game over right now. I mean, the Minnow have not an ideal position, but it's just 5 versus 2 right now. The wave clear not ideal. I think Kiaya will respawn, so it will be a 5v3. He actually has decent damage, decent wave clear in general. But this is Baron on Cerberus side. It's Chemsol on Cerberus side. This should be the end of the game.
It absolutely should be. Inhib will fall. It is still 10 seconds. That's not very long, Crincy. We may have one final fight left. Innes style ulting and getting away. Locked up for now. They're not even going to hit him. They're just going to take the towers. They're going to hit the Nexus. And Cerberus, the 4th place team up against the undefeated GAM, will get up to a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, easy, clean first game victory for the Cerberus, I gotta say. Am I right? Either way. Of course, a little bit of trolling on both sides in this game, especially like what GAM brought to the early game. I did not like whatsoever, but Cerberus, in the end, kind of being the lucky one in this situation. And I mean, they as the underdog, kudos to them. They absolutely played to their best ability and upset GAM in this first game, and we just gotta give them credit where credit is due. Definitely them playing well for their standard at least. And GAM on their side, they showed that they have the resilience, but in general, I mean, there's just more for them to take, of course, and they definitely have more up their sleeves, and so far they just didn't show it yet.
And we have just seen a major hit to the Rebel Frank economy of Twitch chat, with Cerberus getting the big upset. 98% was the fan vote shown on the Vietnamese stream before the game, and they were wrong. This 2% have risen up, and we will go to a short 5-minute break to catch our breath, and then we'll be back with our analyst desk. Don't go anywhere. This is VCS English.
Stole the dress I saw you in.
back, everybody, to the VCS English Analyst Desk as we got to see Cerberus take a surprising game number 1 against GAM Esports. Mavi, is that how you saw it going down? Is that how you saw Cerberus taking their first game of the series?
Well, I mean, we kind of saw it in the sense that we were looking for the Olaf to be a breaking point, and in the early game, it kind of was pretty impressive. It got off to a very early start with that double kill in that matchup, as we're gonna see there. It was but overall, it was a big group effort, a nice comeback from GAM in the middle of the game. But so no, it wasn't exactly how it went, because they threw a pretty massive Baron over to the side of GAM with the bad smite, Ari being the one to pick it up of all people. And from there, the shutdown, even though Jace only picked up one kill in that exchange, he got a huge shutdown and was able to find so much gold, find his items very quickly, and just run on through to an impressive amount of damage, and almost brought it back, but they fumbled at the end. They lost on the bot lane split push. They lost on the Baron, and with that swing back towards Cerberus, they were able to actually clean it out with death timers being as it was. So, bit of a mess in the mid game, which is where GAM are always strong, always seem to find their way back into it, but they didn't quite get away with it this time, and Cerberus went on.
Yeah, and if you notice, the beginning of that game was also really disastrous. I know, Quincy talked about the draft being not so great, but another really big kind of throw into this was that top lane got an immediate kill in this game because of Drakthar's access to top side. Yado got an immediate kill in this game as a result of Drakthar's pressure, and bot lane, because the double sums were burnt very, very quickly in this one by style, it meant that Artemis got off to a very quick kill. And it's not like it snowballed into a massive advantage. It's not like they took that and just immediately won the game off of it. But it was very clear that from moment one, GAM was a little bit shook, from some of the things that Cerberus was able to collect. And it leads to Cerberus taking our first game of the series as also the only team that's beaten them for a championship over the last couple of years, which is kind of a wild way to start off our thing. Not to mention, in the last split, the most recent split they GAM played in, they actually lost in this round previously to Saigon Buffalo as a team that they had to come back from. So that's something to note as well.
Yeah, GAM definitely made full advantage of that double elimination. Yeah, but this time, because it's still early stages, they're keeping things a little bit closer to the chest, or even trying things out. We're not quite sure. We're going to definitely expect something a little bit different coming in from game 2 this time around. Maybe something a bit more comfortable from Levi, something that gives him not more agency necessarily, because Sejuani has the potential for agency, but after getting read like an absolute, like a book, like an open book at that, and getting completely crushed in that 2v2 matchup, maybe we see something different. Maybe more focused towards the bot side, because in the straight up 2v2, Style and Sin kind of got blasted. Maybe that's the way he needs to go. Just if you camp the bot lane, that means Drakthar might not be able to wreak havoc in the solo lanes and be forced to come babysit Artemis and run alongside you.
Yeah, at minimum, you can't let them have that type of agency for free. You have to do something elsewhere. That first game was, again, the Viego having quite a bit more kind of agency and being able to run things. Levi felt a little bit more muted than normal on the Sejuani. Given that the split, the aggressive picks, the Wukong, the Lee Sin, but much more of the MO of Levi, that knowing that the Sejuani came out, not to say that the Sejuani's been a bad pick by any standard, but again, it hasn't been a go-to for Levi for the majority of the split. And so, again, popping onto something like this is a little bit wild. I think the craziest part of this game was that Kiaya, despite going down like 3 kills in the lane phase, despite being down a ton, was the first one onto 5 items because of a combination of side lane pressure, bunch of farm, and then also you just a cheap build path. Kind of got Jace into a point in this game where we were starting to worry that GAM was going to find a way back just because Jace had enough pressure to drop into enemies, and a couple hundred damage every single time a shot class came into fights.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe this also sort of signals a complete change for the bot lane. We've seen the Lulu come out a few times from Xin. It's not been his best pick by any means. He had the infamous, what was it, 10 DPM game or something like that. Just an absolute ridiculously low thing. But from it, but I feel like he definitely tends to shine a lot more on champions that also get out, roam, affect the map. Rakan, Leona, even Heimerdinger with the ability to just hard shove the wave and then go walking into the river and making sure you can control that area. I think that might fit in a little bit better and gives them an angle to link up, pair up with Levi and try and run the game rather than letting Drakthar call most of the shots and relying for that on a throw to gain any control of the game back.
Two things that I really liked in this game, also from Cerberus' side, because their draft was good. I think one of the main reasons was Artemis has a champion in the laning phase that is strong enough, it's self-sufficient, and it's really funny because it can't necessarily like int the way that Artemis sometimes does on certain champions, where like Artemis really wants to play on a front foot, Artemis really wants to jump in and do damage. How many times did Artemis Gale Force forward in that game and then get basically nothing done because he just wants to be aggressive and can't? But then on the return, it's like, okay, the reason why it ends up working out is because there are feathers on the ground, you get the ultimate, you can pull them through, and ends up doing a ton of damage. Ended up playing really, really well into Artemis' style and helping him out quite a bit. And the other one was Yada was smurfing in that game. Like, legitimately, the Vygar was so strong. I think by the end of the game, it had over 1,200 AP. It was one-tapping people. Like, it was impossible to deal with on the side of GAM. Like, those are two champions that if you're GAM now and you're looking at Cerberus, you have to be so concerned with because of the amount of control that they just exuded in that game.
Yeah, I think with that and style kind of having a bit of a rough one in terms of positioning, stepping up a bit too far forward, feeling a bit too safe with Alulu at his back, perhaps was just walking up, finding himself in the baby cage quite a lot. And when you're in the baby cage, you cop a lot of damage from a combined Featherstorm and Primordial Burst. So with that, it's and with the Zeri sort of being the big damage threat, yes, of course the Jace was pumping it a lot, but you need the Zeri to sort of bring it home a lot of the time. And yeah, with that not sort of showing up at all, it fell apart. So maybe something a little bit safer for Salve this time. Maybe you try and prioritize the side. Maybe Jinx. He works well with Jinx because Jinx has so much range to work with. And you don't feel as naturally safe, so you're not actually stepping up forward, trying to rely on your dash, rely on your Lulu to get you out.
Are there more creative picks you'd like to see from GAM? I said this as the season went on. The number one thing I like to see from GAM when they're undefeated is that I want to see them do something crazier in the drafting phase. And they've got Kiaya in the top side. They got Kadi in the mid lane, and they've got Levi in the jungle. And that game felt like it was like, okay, the Ahri was fine. I think Kadi played a perfectly fine game given the position that they were in. Kiaya did a bunch of damage, but was kind of, if I'm being real, the fact that Cerberus was able to leverage Olaf as early as they did into an advantageous lane is kind of miraculous. Given that, like, you think about the number of champions that Kiaya has to have readily available, and they know in their heart of hearts, Jason, Jax are going to be at the top of that list. It's like, okay, Olaf beats those of the champions in the lane. So what are you supposed to do? Like, what do you draft Jace? Eventually you do a bunch of damage. Who do you want to step up and say, I'm going to take something interesting, I'm going to take something cool, and change up the draft here for GAM more than anything else?
I mean, I always want to say Levi, because Levi, in theory, has the biggest depth of champion pool. He can always pull out things like the Nocturne, the split Nocturne, Rumble, Nidalee, Hecarim. These are a few the champions he's just had a throwaway game or two on that he's looked pretty good on for the most part. And of course historical Carthers, things like that. So I always want to see Levi try and make things a little bit spicier, but I feel Kiaya not really having a real answer to that Olaf means it should probably go towards the bench. Maybe you let the Wukong go through on the off chance that, hey, maybe you can get a hold of it. But I mean, if you're with GAM maybe going on to blue side this time around, they'll have first pick, so they won't be banning Wukong by any stretch. But yeah, Olaf just throws a wrench in it, so I really think it has to be sort of Levi, or you look to style to maybe play a mage in the bot lane, the Ziggs, the Veigar, and then that opens up maybe something interesting for Cardi to work with.
That'd be a kind of good turn of events to see a little bit of something there. Yeah, I'm waiting to see, again, creativity from GAM, because I think that's the number one place that they always lack as the season goes on is just additional creativity with some of the picks that they end up bringing out. If you're Cerberus and you're building on this game, they didn't make a ridiculous number of mistakes. Again, there were only a handful in there, kind of spread evenly throughout the game, something that you would expect from them. And still, GAM was able to push them into like 50-minute territory, able to push them really, really out of control of the game, despite them having an advantage for the majority. Like basically from minute 1, they were holding an advantage. What do you want to see Cerberus do to change that? Because that, to me, is much more pressing. It's an issue of, like, not only for this series, but for the longevity of playoffs. The fact that they can't close an advantage like this is at least a little bit pressing in my mind.
They need to be, I mean, of course, they need to be more aware of their position around objectives. They need to be, like, Ron OP, he got it together after that first one, but that first Baron, they did not do anything to really check Sejuani. And I mean, they were able to, they lost it to a smite from Drakthar going off to the Ahri. Just slight mistiming, but that extra pressure that you didn't need to have on top of you. Things like that. Just better setups, play it a little bit smaller, a little bit safer. That might have been the way they needed to go.
Okay, we're in the draft for game number 2. Cerberus is back on the blue side, and GAM goes back to the red side. I don't think we get a ton of variety in the bans here. The Vigar getting taken away from Yato, to me, makes way too much sense, as the Rakan is once again going to go over to Ron OP, and I wonder if we just get a trade-off, and it's just going to be the Zeri to ensure that they do not get the Zeri Rakan. I don't think Style had a terrible game on this Zeri outside of the very opening of it. I thought the damage wasn't quite there, but again, if you're behind the entire game, that's fine.
Yeah, everything. It's certainly not the worst thing for Style. It has been a successful pick for him across the split, but yeah, just maybe again, I think that change up in support might foster a little bit of a change in playstyle. The Nautilus was what was actually banned originally. And it was off the table for backup. Of course, Ron OP is not taking that, but so Xin will, and it should just be traded off for that Xayah, you'd imagine.
Xayah and maybe Viego, because then it kind of dissuades the Lee Sin to a lot of extents. If you end up picking that, then you... I don't think you can do that twice. There's no way they can do it twice in a row, right? Like, there's almost no capacity for that to happen. I prefer to believe there's no capacity for that to happen. Fair
enough. But I still think you could have slammed it down and just said, all right, what is your answer, Xayah? It's not gonna be the case. Decent, makes a lot of sense. Can see a lot of things coming out from Levi, but yeah, it's pretty stock standard so far. And actually, it's not locked in yet. There's still time.
Nah, I'm snoozing. That's 100% a Lee Sin lock-in. I'm bored.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to buy a little bit of time to talk about the ban.
Fair.
Yeah, and so lock it in, and they're gonna just do a very similar strategy. Try and go for these Ahri counters. Maybe try and bait an Ahri ban from the side of Cerberus.
It wouldn't shock me if that were the case, because on one hand, it's like, okay, actually, no, there's no opposite opinion here. Basically, Ahri would get taken by this team so that they could get another counter pick coming through for Xayah. And so now the Ahri gets banned out from the side of Cerberus. They know that they can't take it. Assumably, Yato still has things in the tank. Rise and Talia rise in priority, as well as his other options that can kind of pop up. I also wonder about if there are tanks to throw in the mid lane here for anybody like that. Annie is still... Oh, no, not true. Orianna, Syndra.
Cardi's most played has been Orianna so far, and combined with the Lee Sin, that's a decent ball delivery system to work with. Rise, another big Yato pick that he likes to play. These mid lanes are going to be squeezed a little bit more. I almost don't expect a mid lane pick to come through, a ban to come through, on the basis that GAM gets to pick first. There's a Rumble, which is kind of a little bit of everything. But this signals perhaps a rock in the top side for Pun, as it is just going to be Lissandra snaplocked. Silas is open. This is a potential mistake. Silas is a nasty matchup. Is a pain in the ass for Lissandra, I have to say, but just like a.
I mean, Yato's always been a standard mage player, and so the Silas being dangled in front of him isn't the biggest bait in the entire world. He's gonna grab up this, which, again, decent kind of decision to throw into Kadi. Was that an insta-lock Malphite too? I mean...
I think so, which is a little bit weird.
Okay.
Because it definitely works better as a counter pick, and there are options you can run into it. Just picking a tank into Malphite is a really strong answer to it. But they would lack maybe a bit too much damage if they went through a tank top. So Gwen, it's a decent amount of sense.
I'm once again, I think, okay with the way that Cerberus's draft landed. Malphite's super powerful, and while it does get picked off by the Gwen a little bit because of how powerful she is into tanks and things like that, the W being able to dodge out some abilities during the lane phase, I don't think that that's like a humiliating enough kind of counter pick to actually be like, all right, I don't think that's good. I think it's a bad matchup for Pun. Like the Malphite should be fine, and Talia helps control a bunch of space. That means Gwen can't go dashing freely. It means Lee Sin has to be careful about dashing freely. Beyond like the Lissandra's damage drops off, so you're gonna really pick things up if you're Kiat. I don't hate it. Like I said, I think it's a little bit better of a draft, but there's still no kind of frontliner here for GAM, and there's a lot of potential counterplay coming through from Cerberus, who are doing great today. Seriously, their drafts have been really on point. I agree. I think there's maybe a better pure 1-to-1 mid lane matchup than the Talia. But if you affect the map properly as Yato, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what Levi can actually get done. Because the Lee Sin and Lissandra can actually pair up really well. Because Lee Sin brings the damage, Lissandra brings the CC. And until like level 9, a little bit after that, Talia is a pretty weak mid laner for skirmishing. So you should easily win the 2v2 matchup. You should be able to maybe find some angles, get that mid jungle rolling. And if you can do that, you can get ahead of the Talia, get ahead of the Viego, and beat them at their own game. Try and affect sides, get the Gwen rolling, get the Zeri rolling, and then let those two carry you the rest of the way.
Let's not linger any longer. It's time to send it back to our casters as we get into game number 2. See if Cerberus can push us to a 2-0 over top of GAM here for.
Well, I don't think we were expecting to be in a Cerberus 1-0 position, Crincy, but here we are. They are in the lead this series.
They absolutely are, and they now rolled in another fantastic draft, in my opinion. I mean, there's of course like some, at least, how do I say it? Like some obvious weak signs that where GAM can punish them, especially like the side lane with the Gwen into the Malphite matchup. But in general, just such a good 5v5 composition yet again for them. They had the losing mid lane jungle access in the first game as well, and they covered that one quite beautifully. At this time, GAM still has this one going for them, but they also picked Lee Sin into the vehicle, which I kind of dislike. It just gets to show me that Levi is very confident still, and that Levi is absolutely here. Just pick me Lee Sin, I'm a great Lee Sin, I will carry this game, and will kick Artemis into our guys. And on the side of Cerberus, of course, still, they're on the up foot though, and yeah, can show that they have some more freedom in this draft and absolutely pull away the upset, maybe even the second time.
Yeah, we'll have to see, as no early disasters like last game, no summoner spells being burnt level 1, so an immediate improvement from GAM.
Absolutely. Also, I think the Naruto's pick is kind of interesting because it does counter the Rakan, but it absolutely does not counter the Xayah. Xayah actually likes playing to Nautilus in general because she kind of just laughed at the hard engage, which is coming out right now, and 1OP getting chunked over there. But speaking about this point, it's just the Featherstorm just working so well against what Nautilus does in general with his kit. Just the auto attacks being a snare, the Q being one, also the dredge line, the point and clicks you see being deniable by the Featherstorm means so much freedom for Artemis in general. But can they win the race to level 2? They actually can't.
Yeah, that is going to be GAM moving forward. A hook and an ignite onto Ron-OP, going to send him very low. GAM in full control. Was actually traded as well for the Ghost of Style. Not sure what Artemis cleansed, but he has used that summoner.
It's also Ghost. Or am I hallucinating? It's also Ghost.
Oh,
so
it is Ghost. I'm wrong. Sorry, I was seeing blue.
So at the end of the day, it's just Xin burning his ignite just to get some poke damage in, basically. I think GAM is fine with that one. I mean, of course, objectively, it would just be one summoner spell being down. But this lets them a lot of lane control, which they otherwise probably wouldn't have against the Xayah Rakan lane. And something that Nautilus in general plays towards too. So before 1OP resets, which has now happened already, it would be a window for Levi to punish it, but 1OP actually already back in base and already halfway back to the laning phase itself. And now Levi, we see him of course, starting top side, just pathing into his bot lane, just like any jungler usually does on this patch. However, Dragstar kind of not going for this one. He just now goes for a potential wraparound gank onto the Gwen, who's of course pushing up offensively against the Malphite. And Dragstar in general liking Pan very much this series.
Yeah, they are potentially moving in onto Kiaya. Of course, the W not going to do a huge amount, but Kiaya doesn't need to step forward here. There's no real reason to do so. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere. Dragstar is just going to walk away. Will be spotted on his way out.
That is true for now, but it's also not a great wave set for Kiaya in general so far. He definitely wants to push this way up one way through so it can bounce back, and maybe he will call up Levi to help him with this one, as Kiaya right now not strong enough to really contest the Malphite too much. I mean, of course, Gwen is a counter pick, but before level 6 it's not really something where she can really easily destroy the walk in the top lane over there. And so for now, Pan is very much fine with the way it is going. And also I want to see how Yado really plays out this Taliyah pick, because we talked about this on the analyst desk with Marby and Rebel addressing this point. I mean, Taliyah not maybe the ideal pick into the Lissandra in general, but I mean, you haven't watched VCS this much as the last splits in general. Yado has 4 Taliyah games. How many of those did he win? What do you guess?
I assume all of them. He's a very, very good Taliyah.
Yeah, you're right. He won all 4 of them. So him playing Taliyah is a very confident call, and it also just gets to show that such a pick that relies on coordination with the team is something that Cerberus likes to play and is comfortable playing with, and that's what I want to see from them in these playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there is an element of matchup fishing and the like that is incredibly important, but for teams that are perhaps as mismatched as Cerberus can be into GAM, comfort is really, really important, and Yado, as you pointed out, he's incredibly comfortable on this Taliyah. Just looking at where the junglers are at the moment, because they have not really interacted with the map. Dragstar tried to make something happen topside, didn't really happen, lost a Krug camp for it. So now Levi with a bit of a CS lead. Yado snared up. Levi, I don't know if he's going to be able to get in range. He can, not quite dragged under tower as Yado flashes away.
Yeah, as he flashes away though, so that's a small win for GAM in general. As you were addressing another small win for them, with Dragstar kind of missing his time window. But speaking about those, Pan just now, I addressed this, right? Very confident
clapping
against this Gwen's. Yeah, he's absolutely clapping him. He's just stone.
Yep, as this should be a plate now for GAM, split between Levi and Carty. So a bit of a gold injection into the mid lane, but Dragstar here to make sure it is only the one plate. So nothing too horrible. Kiaya did still have TP, able to get back to lane, no real problem.
Absolutely. And it just, yeah, Kiaya just kind of gets to show that he still has to respect the Malphite pre-6, right? I mean, this time window where Pan can really punish him is starting to get away. The further this game really progresses, he just now also, you see it in his inventory, right? Going for the null magic mantle, going for the ruby crystal to just be tanky, be a good frontline for his team, be good in the 5v5s. He isn't really itemizing for the side lanes, and he shouldn't, because that's just a losing battle. He just kind of has to accept that this will go Kiaya's way eventually. Similarly to how last game played out, right? The Jace pick against the Olaf, working brilliantly the later it went on. And that game, it was Cerberus kind of salvaging the situation with fought in the right fights on the other side of the map. Can they do it this time again? We are, of course, remaining to see this one. It is potentially also just a 5v4 from Cerberus, with them just trying to be quicker on the trigger, as Kiaya is going for the 1v0 base situation and trying to end the game.
And GAM will have priority in the bot side. They are going to get this first dragon. Cerberus not interested in either game actually contesting the first drake. Of course, for game 1, it was sort of just a result of how the early plays happened. This one, perhaps a little bit more deliberate. As, yeah, just absolutely no interest. They're happy to let GAM get this first one.
Yeah, they are fine with that in general, as we have seen. I mean, earlier, of course, something like the Ignite from Xin being blown for this extra 2v2 pressure, something that they are very common with, and this Xin in these first levels still a champion that can work well against the Viego. Viego actually one of those champions that can absolutely duel the Lee Sin if they ever happen to meet each other in the 1v1, but this was just GAM being there, watching down this Drake, and Cerberus not really interested in getting this first Drake in general. And I wonder what their game plan really is, because so far it just looks like GAM slowly but surely even getting this control of the game as they get the first Drake, get the first 1000 gold lead, and them, of course, outscaling in the side lane. So this might just be GAM being back to the usual stride and just winning basically every game, and Cerberus so far not threatening them whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll have to see where they do end up wanting to play this one out. It's still No first blood. It is just a farm and tower plate lead that is giving GAM an advantage. Style on his way up. I think GAM might be going for the Rift Herald, and I don't think they care if Cerberus know it. With their bot lane well and truly on the way. Cerberus do look like they're going to try and contest it. They do have a Malphite ultimate, extremely powerful at this point. In he goes, straight on to Style. Can they one-shot the ADC? They absolutely can, but now the rest of GAM come in. Try and turn this one around. Drakthar desperately trying to escape. He's doing it, but now the Lissandra has fallen. Drakthar on the other side goes down. Kiaya on the run with the Ghost, but here's the wall. You can't run past that one. Gwen will be taken down. Double kill for Yado, and Cerberus come in and rip them apart.
Yeah, they just pretend that they don't care about the Herald, then actually do care very much so. It was Pan just stone ulting into the face of Style, getting one shot by the whole combo situation. Drakthar actually resetting on this pick itself as well as he was falling down to the south side of the fight, but then it was just Yado with the cleanup crew. Weaver's wall very beautifully to cut off the escape, and Kiaya is strong, but he's not a strong 5v5 champion yet in this game, so he also falls prey to this combination. As here we see again how it plays out here. Pan just absolutely insta-gibbing Style here. Also great Unraveled Earth plus Seismic Shock combination by Yado, and now just sometime being bought by him to the south side, and the rest of the squad, yeah, really getting the clip on the other side. It is 3 kills for 1 on their side, and also the Herald, huge W for Cerberus.
Yeah, it's really fantastic stuff. And this kind of talks about hints to something we were talking about earlier, where the analyst has said, ooh, Talia into Lissandra, not a matchup you'd normally see. But look at that wall. Yado's just good at the champion. Who cares about the matchup?
Yeah, it's Yado being good at the champion and Cerberus being good with Talia in general. They just know how to click together with this one. And it's also a great setup together with Malphite, as we just saw, right? I mean, you just easily to just WE combination on towards an enemy AD carry if he's already Malphite ulted. That was not hard to do instead of Yado. I mean, not that he really needs the help. He's a very strong mechanical mid laner, this split in general, as we have pointed out beforehand. So him definitely having a great impact on this series yet, as we see so far. And even this series uncharacteristically, right? It is actually not Artemis just hard winning lane in 1v9ing, it's the whole team of Cerberus gelling well together.
With that fight, it is now Cerberus in the lead. They were about 700 gold down, so it's around about a 1k gold swing. Not bad at all for the dogs. Let's looking at the items. Has there been any breakpoints accelerated to? Pretty much just that lost chapter for Yado, where there's a significant lead.
Yeah, so far not really any breakpoints that we can really write home about, as we see the items not really being completed, but we see Drakthar kind of being in an awkward spot, but he has all the components for the Divine Thunderer, but not the Divine Thunderer itself, as we see here. Of course, the damage being done for this Rift Herald fight we just now saw, the Rift Herald itself being charged onto the mid lane, will grab them almost 2 plates at one instance, but Yado, of course, with his auto attacks with the wave together, will secure another plate on their side, so this just now nets them another gold, and actually the first small lead for them overall in this game. However, that's not enough, right? You definitely need to make more out of it and just still keep going for these 5v5 fights, maybe even 5v4 fights, depending on what Kiaya plans to do, and just keep ripping GAM apart where they stand. Style doesn't have an easy game this time.
Yado flashing away, doing well there, because Xin really botched the hook. They're going to go again. He goes gold for now. I don't know if he has another escape in him. Tries to turn it around, but the shutdown goes over to Levi.
Yeah, just good catch by GAM, and Cerberus not really respecting that it was possible to happen. Yado even using the flash despite going down is of course a small waste on their side, but this is just them collapsing the 3v2. Drakthar was around, but he wasn't really contesting the situation, as they were kind of knowing we shouldn't chase the losing play over there, just accept the fate of Yado. And this Levi with his first kill, maybe time for him to make like some impact, and also getting quicker to his Godwinker power spike where he can still at least duel the vehicle to some extent.
Now Crincy. We crest this 12-minute mark. We have a second Drake on the map. This one looks to be going over to Cerberus uncontested. It resets the Drakes. We'll have to see what the soul is going to be. But with GAM sort of misstepping the first play, but still with the gold lead, how do you think this one is going to play out for the next 5 or so minutes?
Very interesting question to ask over there, as I don't quite know yet, actually. I mean, we have an Ocean Soul this time, which is, of course, like, arguably the weakest soul in the game. However, still a decent recon. As Pun's recon gets interrupted, he might just get dove over there, but he can maybe clear the wave.
Yeah, he does manage to clear the wave, knocks them up as well. Kiaya, I think that was a really bad decision to ult, but Levi's misplayed it. Taking tower aggro, and they just have to get out.
Yeah, and not not really diveable with the wave being gone. They almost still got it, with Pan being maybe a bit early on his unstoppable force, but still enough to really just salvage the situation and just be a weak side king. While on the other side, I mean, this of course means that you will weak side Style, and Style being weak side against Artemis is no fun for Style whatsoever. Artemis just now playing so cockily, right? Look at this positioning, right? Being almost closer to the tier 2 turret than the tier 1 turret, and just netting all these plate money still on their side. And this was a little fumble from GAM's side that should be punished, and so far it looks like Cerberus is absolutely able to do so.
Hook onto Rono P doesn't go anywhere. The feathers were already prepped to hold up Style.
Absolutely, and I want to go back to the question you asked me earlier as we were interrupted by the dive play on the top side. It is this game what I expect to do is just Cerberus grouping for objectives, trying to force them down, maybe baiting GAM into these situations that they can't really fight off well before Kiaya scaling really kicks in for the side lane. Or at the other hand, what they could also go for is trying to catch out Kiaya, because he will inevitably be someone that pushes up really far in these situations in general, as he just wants to melt these turrets, right, while his team is kind of holding off. And I just now want to look at, for the side of GAM, how Style can really play out this team fights, if he can play the team fights at all, because he isn't really in a nice situation there. Zeri with no Enchanter this time, he plays against Malphite Talia, won't be easy for him, and if he can deal any damage, while Artemis has a bit of a field day this time. And now on their side, I want to look out for Pan, as he gets counterpicked this time, but still definitely wants to impact those team fights.
Looks like a big shift of the play up towards the top side of this river. 15 seconds on the second Herald, and GAM are really repping that they wanted a lot of commitment and a lot of resources into what is generally considered a fairly low value objective.
Yeah, I'm also surprised because I think GAM shouldn't really be the team that forces these group situations.
Oh, flash over the wall from Zin. They want to go straight in. Pan in so much trouble. Can't even get the ultimate off. He just gets one shot. But on the other side, they kill Kiaya.
Yeah, just the kill to Kiaya is a consolation prize, and it's definitely a huge consolation prize, because in this situation it was just them.
Style going low, knocked up. Hook trying to disengage this one. Oh no, Rono P might have bit off more than he could chew. Yado wasn't really able to follow up with damage. Cardi burning a flash. Oh my word.
Interesting situation to try to catch Style, but they didn't have Artemis with them, so they can't really DPS him down. It is just now Artemis being on the top side because he was catching Kiaya with the boys, and this could be a smite fight. Both junglers are
It is going to be a smite fight. They are here. Levi's had to dance back out, so that is going to go over to Cerberus, but can they trade it for a kill onto Yado? Good knockback onto Cardi, but it's not going to be enough. Traded back, but it was a kill onto Zin as well, and now Levi and Style could be in trouble. Rono P is here. A lovely Q to find Artemis to get some distance, try and get out, but he gets locked up in the end regardless. Can he get the kill onto Artemis? What? He can! Levi is built different!
What was that God Rigger? He was looking absolutely insane. He looked like that too, right? And Artemis just getting the kill, but he just gets himself out and actually just straight up kills Artemis with all the damage he possesses, just kicks him into the face. And this shouldn't have been a GAM winning play in general, as here we see Kiaya being called out by Artemis and Draktar on the top side of the fight, while they were catching Pan on the bottom side of the Herald River area. And this ultimately, even with the Herald, I think it went down to Cerberus, yeah, it went down to the side of Draktar. This was just now Levi against Artemis, maybe the most iconic players of the VCS in recent times. Just Levi looking to be the better of those two in this situation, at least.
We see another replay of the Herald situation.
Weaver's Wall, it's just Yard also playing distraction, flashing out early and just buying time for the 3-man squad of GAM. They kind of need to kill him, but they also take a lot of time for this one, and this was just now them trying to catch out Style and Levi. I think they get Style out, and now Levi should be the one that falls, but Levi outplaying them with the mobility, and just now, look at this God healing that's come out right now. Plus 501 HP, and he just now, yeah. Yeah, Draktar thought this play was a done deal, right? So he was like, okay, Artemis takes a kill, I don't want to kill steal it or whatever. And then, yeah, Levi just like, okay, that's disrespectful, man. I just kicked Artemis in the face and get out. Yeah, and you shouldn't disrespect Levi in the best of 5. Yeah, absolutely.
That Draktar heartbreaker really did not look great in the replay. But of course, hindsight.
It was a heartbreaker for Artemis, I'll tell you that one.
Yeah, very, very true. As now with the reset timings, this will be a Drake for GAM. Cerberus is not in a position to contest it, but they will be able to drop the Herald, potentially trade for the mid lane tower. I think it will end up, the mid lane outer tower will fall. They might be able to get the charge onto the second as well. Yeah, they should be able to fairly easily.
At least they can go for this one, as this is the second Drake falling down to the side of GAM, which of course buys more time for Kiaya in the side lane. to really get this side and threat that they really hope for. Yado actually wants to contest this a little bit, but I mean, just one seismic show is not enough to really contest the Smite, especially with Smite being so strong right now. And Kiaya doesn't have fun in the side right now. He is getting free man.
He is knocked up. Gwen is not immune to that, as Artemis, after an earlier misplay, will manage to pick himself up a kill.
Yeah, and we need to talk about the elephant in the room over there. GAM actually got the Dragon, also won these last remaining fights, but so far Cerberus is really pushing the pedal to the metal and actually getting a lot of structures right now. So 2 auto turrets falling down. They are actually 2k gold up right now against GAM, and this could just mean that they are power spiking much quicker. We just now see the Jug Show being completed by Pan, so he is relatively even to Kiaya yet again, despite being a bit weak-sided. And just now Navori quick plates being finished for Artemis. He's about a big item ahead of Style right now, and an 80 carry in a 5-5-5 situation being so far ahead means, of course, big news for the side of Cerberus. They already are the better 5-5 composition, and now the Artemis being so strong this game means that they should win these situations as long as they don't massively misplay those.
Yeah, and there's something I sort of want to talk about while we have a little bit of downtime, and it's this jungle matchup. Because Levi has just been on another level this split. He has been so far ahead of the rest of the league. I don't think that's particularly undeniable. He's a huge part of why GAM was undefeated, as Pun having to ult away. He should be okay.
Yeah.
Coming into the game tonight, there was the debate of, do you play Drakthor or do you play Ego? And I want to just precurse this by saying the people that just said, oh, Drakthor's bad, play Ego every time, you're wrong. Drakthor's not a bad player. He's a very good player. I did come to the conclusion that you should probably play Ego, because while he's less consistent, you need an X factor to beat Levi. But so far in these 2 games, proving me wrong as he gets out of that situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, even while talking about this, it's just Drakthor proving the people wrong. Drakthor heard you guys talking smack that Ego should be the X factor that should be playing. It's like Ego is like you roll the dice and like sometimes it's a 6, sometimes a 1. But speaking about junglers, Levi almost going down.
Levi getting taken very, very low. They try and turn this around. It will be Xin fed to the wolves to save the rest of the team. Drakthor tries to land the hook, can't quite do it. Cardi on the run, heartbreaking forward. Yado trying to find him. Lovely knockback, and Drakthor donated the kill, illustrating my point. Thanks for listening.
It's almost like Yado is a good Talia or something, right? It maybe should have
Something
been
like
abandoned, right? Yeah, I mean, he played Vega the first, get a happy first rotation better as well, and Yado just absolutely styling so far in the series. Maybe just Yado instead of Ego is the X factor that says needed all the time, right? I mean, Yado plays like this, they don't really need a highly volatile jungler, and Drakthor's just fine. And speaking about Drakthor, he's also playing a very good series so far. Can't really fault him too many plays, aside from maybe like some Baron flips in the first game. But you can't really fault a jungler for Baron flips, they just shouldn't happen in the first place. As here we see, Lieber getting chunked on the turret very, very lowly, and Kati not really being confident in just following up on this glacial path, and this just now means 1 kill for them in the first half of the split, and just now also Yado on the Talia, just now Weaver's Wall to just be in range for this one, not being too dangerous, and just 1 seismic shove backwards, so Kati flashes, he was already, doesn't get to escape over there, and Cerberus chasing the kills and actually getting them unpunished.
And now that does give them a 3,000 gold lead, Quincy. We have a minute and a half to that next dragon. Cerberus will want to be denying GAM moving up to Soul Point. Never a fire you want to play with. Gwen with Ocean Soul as well. Incredibly painful. Levi jumping in, gets knocked out. They will get the ultimate onto Artemis, and without a cleanse, he just has no counterplay. Traded back onto Levi, but Ron OP incredibly low. TP's coming in. Drakthor just jumping out with that stolen leash. In comes the rock. Only knocks up Cardi. Gets punted back by Yado, but there's no follow-up. Style is free firing on the side.
And then it's just Artemis dying with his feathers out. This absolutely shouldn't happen. So it is at the end of the day probably worth fight for the side of GAM. The shutdown on Levi also going down.
Back, stopping any engage off the damage. Pun going incredibly low. Pun going down. Drakthor following Cerberus. He didn't need to do that.
Yeah, you can't fight over there. You have the turret, but the turret damage is pathetic compared to what an 80 carry really brings to the table. So Artemis still being down means they can't fight at all. And this is just a very huge win for the side of GAM, actually getting them 2 kills. And Drakthor is down. Drakthor is the jungler, the one carrying the smite. It could just be a very early Baron angle for the side of GAM. And if they get this Baron, this game might just be done.
Another little play. Oh, they're going to move in onto Xin. They can't quite finish him off, but with the health bar that low, I don't think you can start this Baron. Style is going to back as well, so no 22-minute Barons here for GAM. They are just going to reset for the Dragon.
And Yado almost solo keeping them into this game whatsoever lonely with hitting so many of his favorite volley shots. So he's being the DPS carry. And Cerberus just going for a greedy one this time, just rushing away this Baron. This happened also in the first game, right?
I don't think this works. I don't think you kill this nearly fast enough.
You can't. And
Levi's
you
here.
you can't 50-50 against Lee Sin especially. I mean, he's the execute damage. It's actually a 40-60 against Lee Sin, basically. With Levi, maybe even the 30-70. So don't do this, Servus, please. You don't have to do this one. You just fumbled a few fights. You had a good early game beforehand. And you are still technically up in gold. So just go for the Dragon. It should be the safe play on their side. And I think Artemis could just solo this one, while the rest of the squad can post around the Baron. But GAM knows this. I mean, without Artemis, Servus 5v5 can't really fight.
Yeah, 9,000 health on the Baron. They didn't go for the Dragon. Cardi moving in, trying to get something done, but gets immediately stuffed by the Rakan engage. Artemis is here, firing in. Drakthar heartbreaking away. Rono P going low. Pun going lower. Going down, and it's Style free firing. He's already picked up 2. And he looks absolutely stoked this game.
And this is the thing with Cerberus composition, right? I mean, they have great engage, but if they get the engage rolling and can't really kill anyone within the first few seconds, their engage kind of plummets away in the DPS department itself. It is Style actually being able to free fire and getting 2 kills for themselves, and also them just now netting away the Baron, which makes it a very rough game for Cerberus in general. It was looking like a good game for them, but they just now in these last few minutes definitely fumbling. At least they get a constellation points with this Dragon, as GAM can't really pay any attention to this one simultaneously to the Baron itself. So it will just be a small constellation points, but GAM just now got control of the game itself.
And Princey, this is looking dangerous for Cerberus, as they've really not been able to approach the last 2 plays.
Yeah, Yado also being vulnerable to the G-Chain, and yeah, the ultimate actually not hitting anybody in particular, and Style being the backline. Look at him, he's full HP. Nobody's hitting Style whatsoever, and Style is the one that actually has to have a hard time in these fights. But he plays against Malphite and against Talia. He has been weak sided a little bit, as they were playing around Kiaya a fair bit, and Artemis was looking very, very strong this early game. And now Style is having the time of his life.
Yeah, he absolutely is. After a bit of a rough game 1, he's absolutely redeeming himself, unable to be stopped, even just in this bottom lane where he's just poking away at the tower. Doesn't care at all that Pun is there, because he has the backup of his team. Let's see if they can protect this cannon minion long enough for the inner to go down.
And Style is still behind Artemis, by the way, but he still is such a presence in this fight. It's absolutely ridiculous if you think about it a little bit more. And he having the upper hand in those fights is definitely a worrying trend for the side of Cerberus, who just now kind of have to play around traps and angles and just get maybe a pick while the Baron is still remaining on the side of GAM. But as long as GAM isn't misstepping, it is just free turret gold for them, as they can just run a 4-1 squad, or just as they are just now playing it, with just Kiaya being with Baron and powered minions, pushing away at the side lane, or in this case the mid lane, to just get free turrets. It's 2 for them just now already for them, and they are slowly but surely getting full control of this game, and Cerberus have to go for like smoke and mirror plays to come back into it.
There is a fight brewing around this mid lane inner. GAM wanting to take it down, but Drakthar not quite letting them, as they will just clear out the minions. No objectives for quite some time. GAM just want to get more out of their Baron if they can. They've still got a minute on it, so they could still develop another play down this mid lane.
It just also shows to some extent just how decisive GAM is once they even get a lead. But they didn't really get a real lead in the first game, and it absolutely showed. Cerberus with their lead was not as decisive as GAM was, and this just makes a difference often between the good and the great team, as you see the fight.
Here we go. A start onto Levi, taking him down to about half health, but Cardi's being so distracting on the backside. There's nothing they can do. Pun's already gone down. The tower's fallen. There's going to be a knock up onto Yado. He gets the shove away, but it just doesn't matter. And GAM are flattening them here, Quincy.
Yeah, and Cerberus can't accept that they are behind and can't really fight right now, while the Baron is still on the side of GAM. It was played fine mechanically on their side. I think they just end, yeah. I mean, the Baron wave not that strong, but it's still a Baron powered wave, and it's only 3 members for the side of Cerberus. I think GAM at least tries to end here. I mean, there's still another wave. I mean, the Baron will expire. They might go for it.
Yeah. They might try it, and with a kick like that, why wouldn't you? As Artemis caught out, taken down, in goes Levi as well. Another hook landing from Zid. He's been an absolute sniper, and the rest of Cerberus are melting away. The towers will fall, and GAM firing immediately back after a banger of a game 1. If this Nexus will fall, let's see if there can be any miracle plays. No, there cannot. GAM will take game 2, and we are back to 1-1.
And I hate to say this, but this is a Cerberus we kind of have seen all the split long, I just gotta say. I mean, showing like some promises, like some good drafts, I gotta say, also some good early games, but in general, kind of fumbling once the first thing kind of goes south on their side, and it's just GAM showing that once they get a lead, they absolutely rip you apart, and they show that they are deservedly a 14-0 regular split team, and Cerberus just kind of isn't.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot for our analyst desk to break down. Like, for example, why take Ghost on Xayah against Lysandra? But we need a little bit of a break to let them get their talking points together. So we'll be back in just about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. This is Playoffs.
In the brooding silence, by the light of the moon, running through yesterday's gone wrong. Plant a seed of violence, it's the same old tune. Lay out the ravages of love, and it cuts so deep that the fool in you is me, but it pays to see the unholy cast a disharmony. Bittersweet revelations, let the mirror come alive. Glorified sensation, your name in the headlines. Salvation is poison we mystify. It's love with a black eye and no alibi, no illusion to save you this time. You are asylum to my solitude, playing charades all along. You are a siren where I lay marooned. Here I thought nothing could go wrong, and it cut so deep that the fool in you is me, but it pays to see the unholy cast a disharmony. Bittersweet revelations, let the mirror come alive. Glorified sensation, your name in the headlines. War revelations, salvation is poison we mystify. It's love with a black eye and no alibi, no illusion to save you this time. Well, this is my life story, my fingers to the bone. I'm running after glory. Oh yeah, I should have known. Should have known. Yeah, I should know by now.
welcome back everybody to the game 3 now of this series between Cerberus and GAM, as GAM has returned to their winning ways in pretty quick fashion after not having the greatest of game number 1s. Game number 2 is quite a bit better here, Mobby.
Yeah, lovely game to show a nice microcosm of Cerberus split so far. Start off extremely well. Their early games have been absolutely fantastic. They've been pretty consistently getting good advantages over GAM, but the mid-game stumbles just keep happening. This time around, it was they weren't able to find their way back into it. Pun had some pretty questionable ultimates. I will forgive him that last one, where he tried to flash ult max range and was just a bit short of catching onto Style, but even then, that was a huge stretch, a bit of desperation coming out from that play. And overall, they tried their best. They tried to find angles back into it, but it just wasn't happening. And from the moment they let Levi get that kill onto Artemis, it just slipped out of their hands, and they didn't know what to do.
It's very true. I mean, it felt like super competitive at the beginning. Again, you had a lot of really good things happening for Yato. Artemis was getting into a solid position in the game. I felt like Drakthar was super active controlling things, and then out of nowhere, it just kind of spun out of control. It was constant fighting coming through from GAM, where they've got Lee Sin and Lissandra for the single target damage, ended up doing really well. They didn't even really have to hit like the Gwen hyper power spike, which ended up coming through as the game kind of ticked on. Style was doing really well in this area as well, kind of eventually kicking up into being this absolute menace of a game changer here for GAM. And because all of that kind of came together all at once, like the mid game effectively just got completely collapsed by the side of Cerberus, where they didn't have the damage to respond in any capacity. So it was close, and then out of nowhere, GAM just said, "Hey, we're going to keep fighting you because you have no damage, you have no way to beat us, and then we're going to win the game." So that's GAM isolating and taking their win condition to a much better level than most other teams are going to be able to do.
Yeah, and there was certainly questions to be had in that game, especially about certain choices being made by Cerberus. Artemis did not take a cleanse against Alessandra, and that meant whenever the engage came through from Cerberus, Alessandra could just move into the backside, put an ultimate on top of Artemis's head, or at least threaten it, and force them to sort of play right out of the whole fight. Also, if you're gonna do that, maybe you can get away with that if you rush a Mikhails. That was not on the cards for Ron OP, actually opting to go just rush Shirelius, which normally makes sense a lot of the time, but if you're not running a cleanse into Alessandra, maybe look to change things up. But they didn't do it. They gave the angles for the Alessandra to be hyper impactful, as only Talia had anything to deal with that unsealed spellbook, and in the end they just couldn't team fight into this properly.
And setting up for, I think, easier team fights is something that draft-wise needs to continue to happen here from the side of Cerberus, and also, again, kind of understanding where they're going to be spiking inside the game, what they're going to be kind of doing in order to fight back against GAM is going to be necessary. So far, I mean, we basically had one good game from Cerberus where they went 50 minutes, and then that game was a lot more kind of humble on their kind of parts, because they were put down quite a bit faster. Both games, Yato has been an absolute stud. Is that where they need to put their focus in this series? Because it seems like everybody's a little bit on and off. Like, right? I think everybody's having good performances and bad performances, but Yato has consistently been the #1 contributor to the team this series.
I mean, maybe we need to see him on something a bit more of that hard carry. Like the Veigar, they managed to pull out the win. The Talia, even though he's fantastic on it, it's a more supportive pick, a bit more utility, not actually going to be that late game hyper carry. Maybe we see him move on to the Victor, which is a classic for him. Or you could maybe switch it up and say, okay, Artemis is already doing amazing in the early game. We'll give him a champion that scales a little bit better, so he's gonna do just fine into Style no matter what. Put him on an Aphelios, and then he can step up, hit big in the late game as well. And just Yato's doing fine with give him a little bit of help from Drakthar to get rolling, but focus your attention onto Artemis, the thing you have been doing for 4 years at this point. It's so many years has it been a little bit of the Artemis show. So maybe give him the space they need and just let Yado be a stud on his own.
And while GAM did end up taking that game and taking a tie series at this point in this one, GAM also did once again kind of have a rough early game against the side of Cerberus. This time, that's pulled back. I'm going to pull back a little bit on the statement because it wasn't quite a Cerberus is up 3,000 gold. They've beaten you in every avenue. They traded dragons. They traded kills. They did a lot. It was just that the early gold advantage ended up flowing over to the side of Cerberus. I think at one point it was like a couple thousand. There wasn't anything crazy, right? But it's the second game in a row that the beginning of the game has gone to Cerberus, which means if the gold is in the right place and in the right damage dealer, in the right member of the squad here, if Cerberus sets up that win condition that their 1 gold recipient is actually doing well, you saw what happened in game number 1. So if you're GAM, what are you doing to tackle that? Because their early game has not had its juice. What do they need to change in order to get that mojo back?
You could either try and actually just play for that early game, maybe try and actually spec into it, because right now they've played a lot of late game. Top lane, like Jace was a late game carry, Zeri is a late game carry, Gwen is a late game carry. They've had late game scalers in both side lanes and tried to make the mid jungle sort of be that active bridge. And the mid jungle has not been able to find that bridge. They've been relying on the fact that Cerberus can't close out to get them into the stage where Zeri and whatever Kiaya is playing gets there. So maybe make one of the side lanes a point of pressure. Bring out the old Renekton for Kiaya. You're not gonna get Kennen. That's been perma banned, but something in the top lane that can put a little bit more pressure down. Levi once again on the early skirmishes is just fine. Or if you get Xayah or Khan this time, maybe Gams gets going to blue side this time. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that's the interesting kind of addition to this game is that after the first 2, we've had 2 games of Cerberus now on blue side that have been selected by GAM because they obviously got side selection walking in. So they chose red side 2 games in a row. Now it's a question of whether or not Cerberus wants red side or blue side. I don't know what they would use counter picks on, but it would be nice to see some more wild picks kind of coming through here because they already snuck a pun advantageous kind of matchup in there. They've snuck a couple of solid games on Yado in there. It's a question of what they can actually use to abuse their like 1-to-1s.
So,
yeah.
So Cerberus is one of the few teams I see that will actually often save their last pick for bot lane carry for Artemis, and that opens things up like the Samira. It's opened up Vayne in the past, things like that. So maybe they can look for a curveball in that angle. But yeah, other than that, I'm not really sure either. Maybe just a favorable mid lane matchup for Yado. Top lane is always a safe one as well. So have to see. Then it's definitely not the team you sort of think of as the most flexible. And do we actually see if we move on to game 3? As Levi is going to grab our MVP.
Did we get this in game 1? Did we get like an MVP graphic for game 1?
No.
I don't remember seeing one. So like that means the VCS broadcast were like, "Oh, Cerberus won." We don't have any of the pictures made for me.
We did not. We were not prepared for this.
We were unprepared for this event.
Yeah, retroactively giving game 1 MVP to Yado, at least from us.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, from this point on, are we going to be in a situation where we're going to have to wait for late game team fighting? Is Cerberus going to have to transition to trying to match scaling? Or is it that like both teams are going to start picking up the pace and we're going to end up with just like a massive clash at the beginning of the game, every single game, because both teams now are wrestling for early control? Because I don't think Cerberus has particularly been jockeying for early positioning over top of GAM. It's just that they kind of stumbled into it. And they still had to play a late game kind of version of League of Legends in order to play it. So is it better maybe for even if you're Cerberus to slow down and pick more scaling champions? Again, do you think it would be better for like Jinx for Artemis and things like that to kind of pop up as well?
I think so. I think you can look at it 2 ways, which is either go all in on what you're already doing well, which is the early game, or pull back and just say we're winning early games naturally. We're gonna keep doing that. That means we can draft our composition around the late game, the bit where we're having a few more issues. And I think that's the way they should be going. Look for a late game carry for Yado. Look for a later game carry for Artemis. Pan can keep doing what he's doing. Maybe just a bit better on the Malphite ults, but he's usually a good player to just drop onto a tank, and he can do you give him a Cassante, for example, he'll do good in lane and then maybe find a kill and transfer that into a late game pretty comfortably.
Hey, we got draft. Nice. We're coming in.
Woohoo!
Same bans as last time. Same first pick as last time. That probably means that we're going to get Zeri and Nautilus. And that probably means that we'll get Xayah. And then we'll probably get a slightly different jungler, just as a thought. So that Drakthar can have something different for this game. And then we get a little bit of a different draft look in this particular one. So maybe we have a bit of difference in that regard.
Maybe it's a Lee Sin this time for Drakthar. Maybe they actually just say, we don't need the Xayah straight away. Maybe we can save for spicier for a
Big
spicier
funny. Okay,
carry.
now it's a shout out to Froggy. Good times. All right, just pick the Xayah. We know what's gonna happen.
Hey, just pick something. Okay, that's the
Okay.
All right, so they have the complete opposite read to us and are saying we are going all in on early game. Olaf and Tristana, so Tristana a little bit flexible, but can be a pretty effective kill lane alongside this Rakan. Okay, hello Jace. Guys, it worked so well last game.
It hasn't locked yet.
This was the thing. This was what they banned in that second rotation. So
they did.
Kiaya does want to go this way. Could be interesting.
Kiaya also had an excellent Fiora earlier on in the split, and so
yes.
Okay, all right. Fiora is the selection here. They want to make sure that pick is defense. Now it's also a question of, do you flex Tristana mid lane for Yado? Is that something that Yado's not a bad Tristana player. He's not the Tristana player of the VCS in the mid lane by any standard in any way. That doesn't mean that it can't be put into that lane in the right circumstance, but I know Artemis would want it as well. Artemis likes jumping in on top of people, Goomba stomping as much as he can, being an aggressive little punk, so it wouldn't shock me to see that happen either.
Yeah, and it's also worth throwing out there, Kiaya's Fiora is the only champion with a pentakill this split. Slater has so many quadras, but did not get there. As now we move into jungle ban territory. Lee Sin, Rumble, technically Talia, but that's a Yado ban. This is an SGB. What we're gonna see now, maybe the Sejuani ban coming on out.
Dang. So, I was kind of hoping they would ban Viego.
Cerberus is thinking of something. Maybe trying to push Levi onto Viego, actually, because it's not a typical Levi champ.
If we get that, do we get the Graves, is the question. Because that's the only thing I want to see Drakthar play, is the Graves. Notably, Ahri is up as well, so that feels like a pretty solid blanket pick that could be snagged up here by the side of Cerberus. If they need a blind pick mid lane, that's something super comfortable for Yado. Problem is, there is a Veigar ban, because obviously it got taken off by the side of GAM, so they've now put themselves in a bit of a hole and not banning that one out. So the Ahri, to me, is the obvious pick here for Yado. And then it's a question of what you want in the jungle. I suppose if they end up grabbing the Ahri, Maokai is still around, Hecarim is still around, Graves is still the best champion Drakthar has ever had, so I don't know, but one of those would probably be my preference here.
Yeah, you could go a little bit weird with it. Maybe the Elise comes through if you really want to run through the big early game lead. Maokai's here. He's been around, and now it comes down to what does Cardi want to play into Ahri. Lissandra, he played last game. LeBlanc has also been a pick. It's a bit of a skill matchup, but scale with LeBlanc scaling a little bit nicer. Never mind, doesn't actually matter. So we're not going to talk about LeBlanc. It's going to be boring. It's going to be Lissandra.
Yes. It is a bit of a different look here. You still do have quite a bit of jump in from Levi to pair alongside Kadi with this Lissandra. It's less single target than the Lee Sin had. You have the same rough bones of the composition you had in the previous game, with the one difference being that instead of having the Gwen, you've now got the Fiora, who's a lot more single target, a lot more split push focused than what the Gwen might be, which I think does hamper a bit more of what GAM had going for them in game number 2. do you like this better for Cerberus? Does Cerberus have a better angle in this game, especially now that Tristana's been busted out? You know, that tech has been revealed here from Cerberus.
Yeah, Cerberus is definitely going to be a lot more interesting. The Olaf coming out, the Tristana, going to have to see how well that works out. If I can get a push and go down bot lane, I think this is definitely going to be a try and funnel Artemis, try and get that Tristana rolling and hitting as many plates as she can. And I mean, a Maokai is a pretty good place to start. If that get the tree down there, has pretty good setup. CC can just point and click on top of the Zeri and keep her rooted for days, like with Rakan follow up and Tristana's burst. Should be easy. Should be relatively easy pickings if executed properly and not read by Levi. But we'll have to see how the mid jungle works. It's the same concept, but a little bit less upfront damage, a little bit more CC, so it should work out just the same. Once again, mid jungle coming in from GAM, as early game looks to be the name of the game from Cerberus.
So let's jump into game number 3. Quincy and Carrix are ready to take us over, so let's get into it.
That we are, is back to 1-on-1. We head on to the Rift, and Quincy, this is a little bit... Why are we on the screen?
I don't know, it's intended though. Spools is very funny today. I mean, we didn't get to show our beautiful faces before the game, so that's the adaptation after game 2.
Alright, fair enough. Sure. In we go, though. As,
that we do.
What do we think of these drafts? It is a little bit different, particularly for Cerberus.
It is. I mean, the analysts just touched on it, right? I mean, they were winning the early games anyway, so we have like 2 options, right? Draft more late game, so you are winning early game naturally and just then get to have a better scaling competition later on as the game progresses, or you go full all in onto the early game to just absolutely brutalize GAM before they can even start to breathe. And this seems to be the name of the game, or the plan at least for Cerberus, with them having this Tristana instead of Zaya, where they could actually have went for the Zaya. They have the Olaf at the top lane yet again. This time Kiaya actually having the audacity to instantly counterpick with the Fiora, which he was afraid of to do so in the first game, if I remind you guys of this one. And also the Aoi and the Maokai at the mid-jungle axis. So first game that they actually have the stronger mid-jungle 2v2 this time. And Cerberus definitely needs to fire on all cylinders to really pull this game out. Otherwise, I think Lissandra can just stabilize for Zeri and Viego to take over in these fights, Fiora to take over in the side lane. So Cerberus have a tough task ahead of them, but if they play it out perfectly, they can do it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think this mid-jungle squad from GAM is going to make Yado's life hell. Of course, Ari is extremely slippery. We'll have to see if they can actually leverage the lockdown that they do have around that level 6 mark. It's not easy, but Levi, of course, an incredibly talented player, as is Carty. The big question mark I have is I'm just not a huge fan of Maokai at this point. I just don't think he does enough.
Yeah, he kind of falls off compared to like the Viego, right? He kind of has to like get the engage walling on and then instantly get a kill.
DPS flash, he's dead.
Yep. And he dies. Stronger mid-jungle 2v2 this time for Cerberus in the champion department, but maybe not in the player department, is Yado, who, I just gotta say it, right? I mean, he had a stellar series so far. Maybe this one is something that we can shrug off, but in general, considering the game plan, this might just be rough because Cerberus, I mean, the top lane is a strong early game pick, but it is counter-picked. Also, the bot lane, not looking too stellar, playing up against the Nautilus on the side of Rakan. And this yet again is something that they really struggled so far, and now mid lane not being like the backbone of the team as much as it was in the last 2 games could be their downfall.
Yeah, and it's really the double disaster there for Yado. Not only does he die, he uses his flash anyway, so there's just no reason they can't rinse and repeat that just over and over again. And really put this Ari in a hole.
And it's already happening. Pre-6 is so disastrous as well. I mean, level 6 is just get even worse, right? The execute damage on the Heartbreaker, also the Frozen Tomb being available for Carty. You can also use it on yourself to just, play the dive with the turret aggro reset. And Yado won't have fun in these next minutes. And I would expect Levi to pay him another visit in these next few minutes just because his flash is also down.
Levi moving into the enemy jungle. He knows that he's stronger early on, as he's just going to steal away a chicken camp. Trakthar has a look into the mid lane, doesn't find anything. Carty well and truly safe. He's actually just going to find Levi leaving the jungle with a belly full of chicken. Not the greatest start for the Cerberus jungle.
Absolutely not. Doesn't get the successful gang, gets outfarmed by the Vega so far, and it doesn't get easier, right? I mean, his engage has to stick, otherwise the DPS department is just better for the side of GAM, as it was last game with the Gwen into the Malphite pickup in general. And so Draktar so far not really finding the groove and kind of making us doubt the Maokai pick in general. As, I mean, we see the bot lane trading, and 1OP is not happy about this trade.
I have a question for you, Quincy. Artemis has not gone Hail of Blades.
That's true.
Why is
Hail
it?
of Blades is more like the mid lane Tristana thing, where you like absolutely play like an assassin and just level 2 all in and stuff like that. The leave tempo actually kind of speaks as like more of the late game insurance policy. So if the game happens to go late game, she just has this insane high range pickup with the Tristana being there. But as we speak of it, this is a 3v2.
We have a catch, but Xin able to get the max range Spider Nord out, and nothing happens with that engage.
Not even the flash block from that. This is such a disaster for Cerberus, actually. They have to pull the trigger and actually get leads in the early game, and GAM so far just looking at them funny is absolutely okay, and just being pushed not a little bit whatsoever so far. It's just them being like this unstoppable, endless wall that just slowly creeps towards them, and they can't do anything about that pushing towards them, and it will be a very rough game for Cerberus. They definitely need to find their angles, and so far they just haven't found a single one.
No, they have not. Pun in the top side. This is not going the same as game one. He is being shoved in. He'll be fine, of course. Big wave crashing into him will equalize the CS, but Kiaya on this Fiora able to give him the business. Grand Challenge comes out, but Trakthar is here. Kiaya has to find a way out, manages it with a flash over the wall.
That's the first small W on the server side. Getting the flash from Kiaya, also getting him low, and they should be able to get him.
He's in trouble.
Levi's not around.
He couldn't keep running down the river, and he ties to the grot. Actually smart there to make sure Drakthar couldn't get the kill. So solo gold over to Ron OP. Can they punish Artemis on the other side of the map? They won't be able to kill him, not with the rocket jump, but they will be able to make him miss a massive wave.
And also, not just in gold, but also in experience. I think he should be about to leave experience wage as he was just now, for being threatened to be dove over there. Gets at least part of this wave, but in general, just a huge win for GAM overall, with them getting this first Drake. Also a Mountain Drake, the strongest singular Drake to have in general. Got nerfed a little bit, but not all that much, and it just makes everyone a bit tankier, and especially like the Ari, the Maokai, who have to rely on their CC chain to really get those catches landing, and then the damage sticking instantly. They hate playing against Mountain Drakes.
That they do. As now Artemis wants to make sure that he can equalize the CS loss. I don't think he's going to be able to with Style very much in range. Isn't able to fully stack the bomb either, so no tower plate. Good block on the hook there from Ron OP.
And the bone plating also denying any possible damage to really land over there. Has a huge cooldown, of course, but he's very happy to tank this one for his boy Artemis in general, to deny anything over there to happen. And for Cerberus, it looks very rough. I mean, they're already getting outscaled. They are down in gold, and a lot of their gold, the shutdown, well, it wasn't the shutdown, but it was just a kill gold from Kiaya, went over to 1OP, which he definitely doesn't want to be, and this might just be Kiaya even freezing the wave on towards Pan, which is very rough to say, because, I mean, he could maybe cleanse it out in the 1v1, but probably needs to call over Draktar, so he can't just easily make him on his own, as Fiora would probably already win this 1v1. He's down in CS a little bit, as we see with Kiaya over there. But in general, this is for GAM, basically everything going to the plans. I think to make this game closer, they just need to feed Pan a double kill again.
That does typically help, as Cerberus actually do have the timing to get the first start on the Herald here. Their ADC is already up here, but with a good, strong reaction by GAM, Shelly is going to reset. And Cerberus look like they're going to back off completely. No, they're going to TP Punny, and so they are going to try and fight this, and it has to go well.
It almost feels like a last resort already for them.
They're already engaging. Ron OP just gets one shot. Cerberus have to back out, but with the stolen soul, Levi moving forward, doing so much damage. They do manage to take him down, and now Cerberus are turning this one around. No, they're not. They get run over. Double kill now for Cardi. Artemis has to hop over the wall. And in the end, 3 for 2 in the favor of GAM. They'll also back off and pick themselves up a Herald.
Yeah, Herald and the 3-4-2 with the scaling composition already looking great for them. It actually looked surprisingly good for Cerberus, as there was a little bit of Olaf gaming going on with Pan actually get to hit a lot of members while he was low HP. As here we see the fight rolling out. It was 1OP being caught initially by the dredge line, plus frozen Doom angle on the side of Kati, and then them just all fighting in this corridor, actually getting killed to Draktar, Frozen Thoughts, also making it hard for Cerberus to chase into this one. Pan actually getting 1 kill, but he also falls down to Kadi, so there's a 3-4-2 for GAM, and the Herald on top of them, very huge win for them. And remember, they actually TP'd Pan for this play, and it wasn't even a winning play for them. This is so rough for Cerberus.
Oh no.
I don't know if this bot lane can get out here.
They're going to try, but with Xin coming in, Artemis has to find some absolutely magical footwork. It just doesn't exist against the dredge line. Does manage to reset his jump, but the hook from Xin is good enough to send him down.
Yeah, and just 1 more kill for Levi. Viego not really his typical Levi champion in general. They just kind of picked it to deny it from Draktar. But even on this champion, right, Levi shows that he can basically play anything. Also getting the kill to Artemis, very good for their side. And GAM, this game, from draft to the gameplay itself, just doesn't feel threatened whatsoever by Cerberus. And this is a worrying trend for me, because Cerberus looked so good in these first 2 early games, but this game, nothing really clicks for them.
Yeah, everything has sort of pinged off the armor of GAM every time Cerberus has tried to make something happen. Meanwhile, everything GAM has done has been a critical hit. And it does lead them to have this 2,500 gold lead at 10 minutes, which, when you look at the compositions, absolutely not where Cerberus needs to be. They sort of need a big play.
It's also the Drake, and they also still have the Herald, and also still turret plates available, so it will be even worse for them. And this, so far, looks like to be a dragged out slump by the side of GAM. And I mean, maybe Cerberus needs to listen more to Mavi, because Mavi suggested that they should absolutely just pick more scaling, because they win the early game anyway. Forcing all in very hard on 5 rolls for the early game just doesn't seem to work out for them whatsoever. Their only late game insurance is what I addressed earlier, or tried to address when you were asking me, the lethal tempo on the side of Artemis, so he isn't the Hail of Blades to start now. But just more going for this more insane attack speed, insane range situation, if it happens to go late game, but he's like the only reliable damage threat in his composition, and this just won't be enough against what GAM has in the safety net, right? They have the Lissandra ultimate, they have a Zeri that can just kite around with everything, and GAM so far can just get Drake after Drake, get the small leads creeping in, and Cerberus has no answer.
Yeah, it is nice, of course, to have that late game insurance in Artemis. I just don't think a lethal tempo Tristana really matches up into a Zeri, as you're saying. It is going to be another Chemtech Rift, second time this series. Maybe that's something Cerberus can be happy about. The Soul perhaps not as impactful as others, but they are all win conditions, as you very rightly put it earlier. Has GAM grouped up on the bottom side. They want to try and drop the Herald down in bot lane, it looks like, to get Style even stronger. Style, of course, was carrying the Herald, so...
That they do, and it's also very close to just being 4 plates being dropped to their side. I mean, it even looks like the Drake Soul is like something that's not as much of importance, right? GAM can absolutely afford to just give away 1 Drake, 2 Drake, maybe even 3 Drakes, and then just buy time for the late game.
They're going to try and make a play here. They have actually caught onto Levi. He should go down with that bomb. That is going to be a big shutdown given over to Artemis, revitalizing Cerberus just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit is what really is the issue here. But it is a 4v3 play being forced out by the side of Cerberus. Just one small catch on their side, with Kati not moving from his mid lane whatsoever, just now granting him a small CS lead over the top. But they just try to get another catch onto Style. And Style, yeah, I mean, easily sparks without his flash was down, but it doesn't matter whatsoever. And Pan is trying his chances.
Yeah, he's going to give it a crack defending those last 2 vitals. Kiaya can't re-engage into this one, but he survives. And honestly, for now, that's all he has to do.
Yeah, it is old for old trade, so it's kind of okay for the Olaf. And here we see again how the mid lane play went out with the Righteous Grasp coming through, also Spirit Rush, and also the Charm, I think, landed onto Style, but he insta-cleansed it. No, he didn't even cleanse it. It actually just didn't land, as we see Levi being the ultimate victim. Not really Levi, actually Levi was killed, so... Just focus fire, 4v3 from Cerberus, getting them 1 kill, but that's all they really got from this one. And for this punt play, it looked kind of awkward, but it actually is what you kind of have to do as a top laner sometimes. The enemy top laner forces you all in, so you have to all in too, so you just don't get free chunked out, and this is why he kind of had to ult and force your issue there. It ended up just both trading ultimates and losing the HP pool, so it's fine for Pan, I gotta say. And also, I gotta say, considering it's a counter matchup, he kind of plays well this game.
Yeah, Pan is having a good series. Game 2 was not the best Malphite performance I've ever seen. It was pretty shocking. But Game 1 on the Olaf, he's looked great. Game 3, I should say. So far, doing fine into Kiaya, as you said, in a counter matchup. It's just unfortunate. The rest of the map is just falling apart. Style is going to get a 5-plate first tower.
And I think Cerberus just needs Yado and Punt to perform in the same game and they can win. I mean, this is what happened game 1. Game 2 and 3 kind of not looking as good as the other did. Here we see, of course, Zin going for the hook, but of course, the slippery Wakan not as easy to catch. As however, it's just Style being so massively ahead of Artemis. And we saw last game, right? He was behind against Artemis in some of those fights and still could pilot them pretty well. And this time he isn't even playing against the Malphite, not playing against Talia. And he still has the same tools in his own arsenal, with his own teammates being there. So it will be a very rough game for Cerberus, and this time again, kind of relying on Smoke and Mirrors, like playing to some catches or some stuff to really get back into this game. Otherwise, GAM will just slowly but surely outscale them even further.
And another engage coming in, a lovely Maokai ult landing onto so many of them. Ron OP will die, but he trades for so many health bars. Cardi going down, Cardi dead. Can they find anything more? You think you need more than one. Levi is bleeding out. Artemis will get the kill. Yado looking for more, can't quite find it. And Cerberus do manage to pick themselves up a big play.
And GAM actually kind of getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They wanted to push the issue in the mid and the top at the same time, with Kiaya being there as a sort of split push threat. And he, of course, doesn't really want to 5v5 on the sphere or pickup, but you just now were afraid or just in danger of getting collapsed on in this mid lane scenario. This is exactly what Cerberus did, just casting the Nature's Grasp out of vision and then just slowly creeping in onto those members. And this is Cerberus getting at least a small win on their side, getting this beneficial fight, plus the mid lane T1 turret, the strongest turret we got in the map control, and also the second Herald. It is a win, but it is a small one at this one, and multiple small ones.
There was, but a Herald picked up now. Artemis has that one in his pocket, and I mean, Tristana holding a Herald is basically a tower leader.
Absolutely. They can at least defend this mid lane push. And so far, Cerberus, I mean, they are still behind, but they aren't really like getting completely blown out of the water this game. This is, of course, beneficial for them. Kind of similar to what GAM did in game 1, but in that game, GAM kind of had at least comparable scaling in general, so this time it looks a bit rougher for this situation. And now the Chemtech Drake spawning in 15 seconds could be the one GAM takes, but also what I addressed earlier, right? They can at least afford to give away a Drake or 2 Drakes, or maybe even 3 Drakes, maybe even 4 Drakes, depending on how you value the Chemtech soul, and they're absolutely fine to just keep buying time for the scaling composition to be online. And they are arguably all online already, so they can also just choose to fight this one and just threaten the Chem soul themselves.
Cerberus is going to really struggle to get actually into the mid lane, into the river here, before this is dead. I feel like this is just GAM taking Soul Point.
It is. I don't think there's any contest coming out. I mean, Draktar isn't really trying, right? Just one small sapling being thrown to the side, and he isn't going anywhere close to the Drake pit. So, just now GAM being on Soul Point, just slow and steady win for them. They are in very smooth waters for now.
That they are, and they, again, as you pointed out, they have this scaling draft. They are absolutely in no rush to fight. GAM does not need to do anything. Drakthar burning his ult just so they can step up and clear the wave. There's no real engage here, unless a charm lands and they can try and get in onto Zin, but it just doesn't quite work out. Can they find the damage? They can't. It's Style charging forward, and lovely hook out of Zin. Artemis has gone down. Where did this come from, Crincy? GAM is ripping them to shreds.
They absolutely are.
Oh, no!
Levi. It gets even worse. Kiai also getting the side lane solo kill. And Cerberus just completely falling apart. They get the near ace in this situation with the mid lane fight going all the way down south for this one. They kind of looked like they were able to really chase into this one, but all these frozen falls from Kati just stopping them in the tracks, damaging them, slowing them, and they were just all easy targets for Styles Derry, who absolutely could free fire in this fight.
And I feel like they just didn't need to engage here. They got baited by the charm landing.
They absolutely did, and just then he does fall low, but also they also on their own right just completely get obliterated by this AoE damage, right? All the damage for Lissandra and Zeri coming out, and Levi also getting the reset is very, very comfortable for him. At the end of the day, he just dies because he had to pick up the Ari, and Ari is a squishy champion. And yeah, Kiaya just now, we praised Pan for playing it well, but this is also to some extent just the counter pick working out, and Fiora can just make what she wants, whatever she wants with this Olaf pickup. He basically counters his whole kit with this riposte already, just denying the attack speed even if he doesn't really CC her, and Olaf doesn't have CC in this kit anyway, so yeah, she can easily just use it as a spell to some extent to just deny an undertow and have a very easy way to fight this Olaf.
Absolutely, and now GAM even further ahead, 5,000 gold, item starting to be completed. That's a 2-item Zeri style, extremely powerful compared to just the nearly 2 items for Artemis, but It is so dangerous, particularly when they don't have Pun to rely on in the side lane, as you've been outlining. Herald will be summoned up. This should be the top lane tower taken, but look who's coming. It's the rest of GAM.
Yeah, it's the rest of GAM coming, and Cerberus needs to get the hell out of there. Probably going to get the bounty and then walk out. But can they even walk out? It's a question. Because GAM
I
is
feel like
closing
they're in
in.
some trouble. They're going to TP in. A charm lands, but only onto the Nautilus. A lovely knockup from Ron OP. They're going to try and make this work. Drakthar buying a lot of time on the top side of the fight as the rest of GAM are trying to get away. Frozen Tomb onto Artemis does get cleansed, but the cleanse isn't good enough. Pun taken down on the side. Cerberus, they're getting run through. Levi moving forward. It's Reset City and Income Style. He's zapping them all to death. And Zeri Special online double kill picked up. And Cerberus, it's time for game 4.
Yeah, it's time for game 4. The 5-0 fight just collapsing on the side of GAM. Baron not even being spawned yet, so it's not an option for the side of GAM to really take. And it was a very greedy play to just go for this objective bounty. Of course, with the Herald in their hands, they thought that they would just need to go for something on their side. And ultimately just being their demise. But if we are completely honest, the game was over already before this one. But here we see again how the fight played out. The TP Pun for this play actually started with a charm, but it's also Din. The tanky Nautilus, it doesn't just die to this one. And Pun just tries to fight this one out, gets grand challenge by the side of Kiaya, and now the fight just goes 2 ways, and Pun can't really kill anyone, not even Din really falling down. Artemis gets taken down by the Frozen Tomb, tries to get out with the cleanse, but ultimately there's just too much CC for him to handle, and then, I mean, Star can just get the cleanup over there with the Frozen Force on Lissandra. With Levi getting recess, it's just so easy for him to play, and Cerberus absolutely having no answer to them whatsoever.
This is very look at that damage chart, my word. That is destruction in a word. As Cerberus are now nearly 10,000 gold down, facing down Soul Point in about a minute. There's not really too many paths back into this one. And I think, despite it being a comfort champion, I don't think Yado can play Ahri. I think he has to play a carry. Which
is ironic because Ahri was like it's one arguably one-trick champion a year ago, right? I mean, I think he can play Ahri, but I think Yado has a good day. He should play the hard carries, and that's just where Cerberus really gels with. And this Ahri so far wasn't really working out for him whatsoever. I mean, he plays the team fights fine, but the team in general just kind of not finding the groove. And I was defending Drakthar a lot, but this Maokai performance just isn't it. I think Ego would have played a different champion. For this game specifically, for this draft situation specifically, I think Ego would have been better, although I overall agree with the decision to field Drakthar today.
Oh, no. Oh, Ron OP, you can't back there. He's just caught. He's taken down. That's Baron. To be fair, as silly as that pick looks, it doesn't actually matter for the course of the game. I don't think so. GAM went from winning to winning, and they will get themselves a Baron. And all we can really hope for is a swift procession to game 4. We might just get it as there is the 4v5 engage. Pun trying to make something happen, just gets chunked down to absolutely nothing. They move forward onto him. They will finish him off as well. That starts Levi's reset train. Drakthar has no hope of getting out either. Artemis over the wall. Yado will spirit rush away, but GAM are just ripping Cerberus to shreds. Honestly, the ref needs to call this one. They're out on the floor. Stop the punches.
Yeah, absolutely. Stop the punches. Just don't show us the game anymore. We don't need to see it anymore. It's 18+. It's not safe for children whatsoever as well to really see this game anymore. GAM's absolutely feasting on the bones of Cerberus and committing war crimes out here. And they are going for this cancel right now and absolutely stampede over the game. There's no way for Cerberus to really return into this one. And it seems like they have cracked the code for now at least.
It does seem that way. Unfortunately, my feed has died, so I'm just sorting that one out.
Same.
Okay. It's both of us. We're having a little bit of tech issues, but it's okay. We can still just chat about things. Now, I will ask you the question while we can't see the game. With how Cerberus has been playing, do you think they have a shot against the loser, assuming that they lose the next game? Of course, the series is not over, but looking to the future, do they have a shot against the loser of Wales and SBTC?
They absolutely do. I mean, they still have a shot against GAM of all teams. So if you have a shot against GAM, you have a shot against anyone. I'm not even sure if they even would need to use Ego for this game 4. But I think this draft just wasn't it. I want them to try what Mabi suggested. Just going for more scaling picks and just still win the early game naturally, and then just look how you really face off against GAM. Try to replicate what you did in game 1 as much as possible, aside from this mid-game lull that they kind of had where they were flipping barons that they shouldn't have. Otherwise, I still overall am positively impressed what Cerberus brings to the table, despite this game looking a little bit like a humiliation. And if this Cerberus from today plays against Raids or SPTC, I think Raids and SPTC really need to do their good prep to really play against Cerberus, otherwise they would just lose.
Very much agree. Now, Baron is the objective that GAM are interested in. It'll be round 2. Cerberus, I feel like they have to contest it. You know, go down swinging, don't just die in the dark. Drakthar moving in. He's not going to be able to get close enough to smite. Kiaya dodging away from the charm. How are we going to actually play this one out? Drakthar, they're just going to collapse on him. He flashes over the wall. They're not going to let him get to the blast cone either. 3,000 health on the Baron. Pun now the target. Drakthar taken down, pretty much just soloed out by Kiaya. Pun falling down as well. Bit of a shocker here from Cerberus, to be completely honest. As Artemis does manage to pick up one. Can get Cardi as well. No, he can't. Taken down. And that will be almost an ace. Rono P able to limp away, but Baron secured for GAM. And this is just a formality.
Yeah, this is a formality. I mean, we just can call a game over when it is over. But it almost looked like GAM was juggling Cerberus members like they are jungle camps or something, but they're like kind of juggling with the aggro from Artemis, just really trying to get onto Kiaya. Then Kiaya actually falls, but the rest of the team just goes down. Drugs are being zoned off beautifully by the rest of GAM, so there is no 50-50 chance, and there was in game 1. So kind of GAM showing Cerberus how it's really done when you are ahead to really be brutal about it. And Cerberus, look like complete fools in this game. I think they aren't in general, but in this game, from draft to execution, it wasn't really fitting together. So GAM, this game still beating over them. Now almost 15k up. They have the Baron, they have the Chem Soul, and it should just be, despite the base not even be cracked, probably just be one fight into ending the game.
Hopefully, we don't want to be trapped in this purgatory for too much longer. As Pun down on this bottom side, truly a tale of two Olafs this series, as he is now 1-5 after a fantastic game 1, where he was the real linchpin of Cerberus.
As a top lane, I really feel bad for him because he doesn't really fulfill a purpose, right? He can't win side lane, but he also can't win the team fight. He's kind of squishy, but he also doesn't deal enough damage to kill anyone, basically, aside from maybe Xin if he actually gets to isolate him. And if you isolate Xin, then he didn't really do a good job in the team fight anyway. So he's in a very rough spot this game. And actually, it might be smart for GAM to drag this game out a little bit, just so he hates his life even more, for the time being at least. And also, the mental fortitude from Cerberus is tested at this game. It's a humiliation. It's basically over within their minds already, probably, but they still have to play it out and look as competitive as they could be, while GAM is kind of playing with their food for now. But also for GAM, I mean, 1 more minute to end out the game, probably with this Baron push, and they are attacking on multiple sides.
Yeah, they are doing the 2-lane press at the moment, the easiest way just to slowly wind up the game. The only problem being Kiaya doesn't actually have Baron buff, so the mid wave is not empowered. But in they go, Levi just absolutely cooks Yardo. They engage onto Kiaya. This is almost just trying to get their mental back a little bit, so their KDAs look better. And they do manage that at the very least. Pun gets to feel good about himself. But GAM will be feeling even better as they engage the final fight in the base style, absolutely running through them, zapping them all down, doing the most talented Zeri things. Rono B on the run. They won't even let him get away. Double kill for Style, double kill for Carti, and an ace for GAM as they move up to a 2-1 lead here in this first series of the VCS playoffs.
Well, an absolutely oppressive composition by GAM. As long as they aren't falling down in the early game, they absolutely can let themselves win, and they actually do. Actually getting the first strike also in this series for them, and also getting the lead in the series for the first time, getting over 2-1 on the side of Cerberus. And Cerberus, for game 4, they need a new plan.
Yeah, they absolutely do. There's not a huge amount to talk about except that Cerberus need to go back to the drawing board. They need to figure out what to do when Veigar's banned, because ever since game 1, they really haven't looked like the wheels are on in this series. But we will give 5 minutes for our analysts to figure out what that plan will be as we go to a break. Don't go anywhere. This is VCS English.
The night beckons while you dream. A light
back, everybody, to the fourth game of the VCS English as our opening game of playoffs as GAM, once again, this time probably in even more convincing a fashion, has taken yet another game off of Cerberus Esports. As Cerberus,
I hope that quack came through for everyone else. And
I am really hoping,
because
because it made me giggle too much to have no context as to why I was laughing there for a second. Is Cerberus doomed, Mobby? I'll just break down it. Let's just ask what everyone's thinking right now.
It kind of looks like it. It looks like they've kind of gotten into their own heads and are spiraling a little bit. Like they went for a strategy. It was and again, if you're going all in, I agree with what Currency was saying. If you're doing an all in early game, absolutely put an ego. That is where he absolutely is the king. But yeah, they went all in. They got kind of crushed completely, and you can see it on the goal graph. Just gone the whole way down. The mid jungle just got off to a fantastic start this time around from GAM, and then they put that into the team fights, and just a really, really rough game. Like Ron OP was finding himself getting caught out left, right, and center. Drakthar was invisible on Maokai. They need to completely discard this strategy. Again, I still think they should be playing for like drafting for a late game. Put Artemis on a big carry that can always do work once the items are in. And again, Yado's looked great on the carries, even on the Talia. He looked fine. He was stand out this game. But if you have Artemis on a late game carry, maybe you can bring that one back out and try and work through that.
Yeah, you at minimum have a lot to work on here, because your strategy has fallen off an absolute cliff in an attempt to make something happen. So you do have to be a bit cautious in that regard, because otherwise Cerberus is just kind of doomed. There's nothing for them to be able to accomplish. Like they're already looking like they're losing out on team fights a very consistent portion of the time. Even in game one when they were winning, their team fights weren't the crispest and best of all time. So like maybe playing into it is something that is desperately needed for the side of Cerberus, because right now they're without an angle to win the series, given that GAM has found their number over the last little while.
Yeah, and I mean their team fights this time around were just there were times where it looked kind of good, especially as the later game fights came in. There were a couple that looked like they could have swung the way of Cerberus, but in the end they ended up happening just a bit too far behind. They couldn't actually find the burst needed to start the resets on this Ari and Tristana, and that just meant they fell apart. They couldn't actually commit to the team fights. They couldn't actually win. They weren't able to get anything off the ground either, so they couldn't break plates quickly enough. They couldn't snowball a gold lead off this Tristana. It just wasn't. Yeah, nothing came together. I guess if you try and look back to the first couple of games, their strategies there. They had a late game. They had a decent late game insurance policy. They had a way to keep Artemis always relevant, because Zaya isn't the late game hyper carry, but she is always relevant. Her damage is always relevant. It just becomes her range, which is an issue. So I think late game is the key in terms of drafting, because their play in the early game is, as long as Drakthar can get something going, or if Ego is in and he gets something going, if the jungler gets something going, then maybe.
I also am curious about how do you get lanes to be back into a dominant state? Because game number one probably was the one big difference maker between game one and game 2 and 3, is that game one, top lane was winning. Not just like decent, not just like normal or neutral. It was winning for the side of Cerberus. Mid lane was winning for the side of Cerberus. Bot lane was like, whether or not they were winning, whether or not they were kind of even, it is what it is. I'm not sure. But what I know is that it feels like they need to be winning in multiple positions in order to actually make things happen. So I'm on the fence about, like, if you index super heavily into late game, then Cerberus might just get run over too quickly. But if they continue down the other path and they say, okay, we need to double down, try to win lanes, then it's like, okay, can they actually transition to a winning late game?
Yeah, I think a big thing that kind of we saw in these last two games was also Ron OP's effectiveness was immediately muted by the Nautilus. Like in that big fight where they're in the mid lane this game, they where they got completely crushed. It started off with a pick onto Xin, but Xin gets his ultimate off, and the depth charge knocks up 3 people, interrupts the Rakan engage whilst doing so. for the Rakan for low post doing so, and yeah, they've had this Nautilus as the counter pick into the Rakan, which has been a perma first pick, and it's just muted what he can do. It's muted their ability to fight for that level 2, fight for that aggression in the lane. Like we saw them solo kill, 2v2 kill style level 1. Granted, he blew his summoners, but yeah, I think trying to actually fight for that lane, trying to get a better support matchup might be the way to counterbalance that lane in a way to allow for maybe an Aphelios, maybe a Jinx.
All right, really quick. It seems like there's a little bit of an extended break between games number 3 and 4. So while we get prepared for game number 4, we're going to jump back to a bit of a break, and we'll come back in just a couple of minutes to re-up on the desk, get prepared for drafting game number 4, and see how the series continues.
Awake to my voice and hear the call within. Embrace the fear inside. Surrender your mind to mine again. this. Come and run again. You wanna dose of this right now? It's KDA. I'm a goddess with a blaze. 소리처럼 나 이름 믿지 못하게 loud, 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 loud. I could take you to the top. 절대 멈추지 못해. 내가 끝내주는 bag, yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I started talk that, oh, you know how to react. I'm a picture perfect face with that wild in my veins. You can hear it in my glow, 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 glow. So keep your eyes on me now. 무엇을 보든 좋아할 거야. 다 할 수 없는 배분. 나와 되길 원한 늘 확신해. We got it all in our hands now. So can you handle what we're all about? What's so tough? Let's get it, show you out. Can you feel the rush now? Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. They could try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round, 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 round. Wish you luck, but you're not bringing us down. Go hard, till we get it, we go hard. We so in it, we pop stars. Only winning, winning. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. You ready for this?
Let's go.
See, 언제든지 내 모습 매직 단 한 번에 내가 잡아 절대 기죽지 않지. 펴펴 네가 뭘 알아? 견딜 수 없어 원해도 원하는 게 얼굴에 보여. I'm trouble and you running it. I'm so cold. When I move that way, you gon' be so blown. I'm the realest in the game. Said I'm on fire with the blade. You're about to hear my name, ringing in your head like whoa. So keep your eyes on me now. 무엇을 보든 좋아할 거야. We so tough. Let's get it, show you out. Can you feel the rush now? Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. They could try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round, 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 round. Wish you luck, but you're not bringing us down. Go hard, till we get it, we go hard. We so in it, we pop stars. Only winning, winning. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. 난 멈추지 않아. Oh, we go hard. Oh, we pop stars. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. They could try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round, 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 round. Wish you luck, but you're not bringing us down. Go hard, till we get it, we go hard. We so in it, we pop stars. Only winning, winning. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down.
Every child in Valorant has heard the tale before about the cursed mommy boy who felt his heart no more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the VCS English Championship Series broadcast of playoffs. We're in our first series. We're back from break. It is time to see whether or not Cerberus has any fangs left here, if the Dogs have any bite back for the series, or if GAM will continue their reign of dominance over top of their opposition. Mobby, I mean, what do you want to see at least from Cerberus in this third game, or in this fourth game? I guess, like, even obviously winning would be great to go to 5 games, but like worst case scenario, even if they don't, what could we see to make us at least happy with the performance from Cerberus here?
I think a bit of a shift up in the bot lane. Again, I want to see Artemis on something that will progress well and thrive in as the game moves into those later stages. What? Which? Okay.
I said Twitch.
Yeah.
You said Twitch. What? You said Twitch?
Twitch. I did not.
You just said Twitch.
I did not hear the T. So
what do you
I
mean?
thought you just called me a witch.
I didn't say anything. What are you talking about? You
Someone
said Twitch.
witch.
I think Twitch is a great idea, but that wasn't me.
Right, I hate you. Right, this is right. Okay, I'm being gaslit by Rebel once again.
Right.
Yeah, so Twitch might work. Stop the duck. As I've lost my train of thought. But Aphelios and Jinx would be the two standards. And then also something different from Ron OP's. The first pick Rakan, as long as Nautilus has been available, just shuts it down completely. So try something different. Take the Nautilus yourself instead of going for the Rakan. Don't first pick your support. Something like that.
How about champions that like we know that they are capable of playing? Like okay, Rumble. It hasn't been banned out in every single series. Pun can play it. We saw Pun dominate on it. Not just play it, dominate on it for 20 minutes of gameplay before being absolutely useless. But that's 20 minutes of dominance that you guarantee inside of the game, right? Like, that is a shutdown PI that you're guaranteeing in the game. More champion diversity out of the jungle, more champion diversity out of the bot lane. Like, there's so many options here for the side of Cerberus. Like I said, it feels like the one consistent member has been Yano, but that third game was also the biggest closing door onto Yano that we've seen so far pretty consistently through the series. So they have to find avenues of win.
Yeah, they definitely need to. Like we see there on the MVP, Cardi showing up huge in that game, getting the MVP reward from the VCS stream. And yeah, I think they finally managed to link up Cardi and Levi properly in that game, and with that they had a pretty crushing early game and getting an actual good counter pick. Also this time, maybe we actually see it's Cerberus on the red side. They've been blue all 3 games so far. This time, if you're on red, you can force a counter pick onto Pun, so Pun will get the better matchup. You can you can get to sort of respond a little bit better to what actually GAM is drafting, rather than try and force your strategy and hope GAM doesn't counter you, because they've managed to do so, especially in that last game. I think you might need a bit of a drastic change after getting blown out that hard, and swapping side is a good start.
Who's to say? We'll get a chance to see whether they want to. Obviously, both teams seem to be very comfortable with the sides that they've picked so far. Also, if you really want to get like super crazy about it, I'm gonna say some nonsense words here for a second, which is that technically Cerberus has never won on red side in the series, and they have won on blue side in the series. So, I mean, are you really gonna change that up at this point?
I mean, if you wanted to be a bit more serious, you could actually point to the fact that Cerberus has a much lower win rate on red side over the course of the split.
Significantly.
But also, yeah, I feel like this might just be something you need. Maybe you're bringing an ego to look for that change. Maybe you're bringing in Huber after Ron OP's performance, but we're gonna have to
maybe they'll sub the puppies in. Maybe that's the play.
Unfortunately, the puppies have all gone to Team Flash, and I don't think that you can substitute another VCS team into play for you.
I don't see a single problem with that, as we're going to be jumping into draft for game. Okay, biggest difference. There is no Zeri in this game. That is going to be banned out, which means that outside of that, everything else is as consistent as can be. That means that Ron OP's back on the Rakan. We go to Nautilus Zaya instead of anything else. And then it's Viego Ari as the response as well, which means that they don't have their bot leader yet. They're holding that for second rotation so that they can keep the Ari up here for Yato.
Yeah, then I imagine you just see the Lysandra coming straight away. Maybe then you're sort of split on what you want to do. I guess throw the bans towards jungle, but if Lee Sin gets locked in, I guess Cerberus's option is just to ban out Lysandra, but
no.
So jungle bans it will be.
Yeah, I think it's got to be jungle bans coming out here from the side of Cerberus. The question to you, I guess, is do you go AD bans here, or do you go top lane bans in an attempt to pitch out the pool of Pun a little bit harder, or do you split it? Like, are there two specific champions, one in each role that you really want to ban out, or like what are you banning out here?
So I think if it might be worth banning Jinx regardless.
Okay.
But with the Aphelios ban, I think it's going to be a Jinx Aphelios angle on the bans coming out from GAM, just to make sure, sort of, I guess, reading as I am, that's where they're going to want to throw Artemis, especially after the Zaya has been taken away. Because if you get those in, you can actually contest pretty heavily in the spot lane, but it does feel a bit bad because Artemis's champion pool is extremely deep. So just wanting to take away the two big ones that will fit the composition well, I think is most likely is Lee Sin ban, expecting a Sejuani to follow on the side of Cerberus.
Okay. Yep, there's the Jinx taken off the board. There is no Wukong this game. There's no Lee Sin. There's no Vi. There's potentially no Sejuani, although there's another alternative you could potentially take out, like other champions that you might not want to see. But there's AP champions specifically that you wouldn't want Levi on. I don't think that's ridiculous either. Even something like, it's a question of whether or not they care about the Sejuani. Yeah, see, I don't think they actually really care about any other jungle picks. So I think it does make sense to ban out Jax in case they want something a little bit more. They're going to get Gragas. I don't love Gragas in the jungle. I don't think it's worked out for VCS teams. I get why. For Levi, it's probably one of the best. I was going to say Trundle might be a ban, but okay. Well, they're just bouncing around the pool. They gotta pick what to go. Honestly, I think Hecarim is my favorite of the ones that they've covered so far personally, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
there it is, Nocturne.
Goodness.
So that's gonna be a bit of an interesting one. It might mean a little bit more side lane play coming out from the side of GAM. Sivir is gonna come out of pretty much nowhere for the side of Artemis, and they're gonna just sort of ball up and hope that late game Sivir win condition comes on through. But against the dive that's coming out from GAM, maybe that could be a bit of a risk. There's only one spell shield on that Sivir that can be popped pretty easily.
That's true, but now you also have to think, okay, Spell Shield prevents Kadi from diving and just immediately pressing ultimate. Now you have to break it with a Q or something else. You've got, like, you can't just ult as the Nautilus. Now you have to try through a Q or some other spell. And if you're, Levi has to break that on the way in with the Q, so the Q's not going to stick onto the Sivir. So there's a little bit more survivability. Plus, it's not really Assassin Nocturne that's been popping up instead. It's been a lot more of, like, the Stride Breaker into more tanky kind of frontline setup for the Nocturne that we've seen more consistently here in the VCS. So I think it's actually, the dive on Artemis is shut down quite a bit more because of the spell shield. It's a lot harder to execute on it without multiple members. Ki also going back to Fiora, which is a pick into, Pun's Cassante here, which isn't bad. I think it's really, really good. The laning phase should be perfectly fine. The late scaling is perfectly fine, obviously, for the Fiora. I like the Sivir. I think the Sivir ended up being a pick that is going to be a bit more unique and is going to help them out quite a bit in their team fights.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it sort of comes down, of course, to how the dives are played out. If you dive into it once, two at the same time, you can pop it quickly with the Stride Breaker from Levi, and then Lissandra can follow up. But that's where my angle of you only get one comes from. But overall, it's going to be a little bit more interesting. I think a lot more side lane play this time around might be coming out from the side of GAM, and we're going to actually see if they can execute it, because side laning has been something where they tended to succeed a little bit more. They've tended to know how to play around these sideways a bit better than most teams, but it might require. It's also one that kind of requires a bit of a better early game to start and get rolling with, because otherwise you just lose the free man in the middle. So, gonna have to see.
Game 4, let's get into it. Garrix and Quincy, let's start her up. Let's see if Cerberus can take us to 5.
Yeah, I've heard that map 4 is live, so we are going to head into the game. As GAM is up 2-1. They are on match point. They want to move up into that upper bracket. And Quincy, I ask you again, what do you think of these drafts?
It's a little bit like last game, but not as horrible for Cerberus as it was this time. I mean, this time they at least have better late game scaling options, right? With the Cassandra not really falling off as much. I have seen Cassandra's beat Fioras in the past. I mean, it is a counter pick, but you still need to respect the early game dominance of this champion in general. And also, I think Levi on the Nocturne is like a bit of a curveball, and it could just go either way. It could just be the super stomper, and also one champion that doesn't care about the spell shield all too much, doesn't really the unspeakable horror anyway, and can just run it down with auto attacks to some extent. So that could work out in their favor as well. And in general, I'm not sure if this Rakan first pick booster is really what Cerberus really hopes for in general. They have done it all game. It worked out once, but it also failed twice. And this time, at least what I have to give credit to them, I think their late game options are a tad better, with Drugford being back on the Vigo again.
Kiaya does walk in, get a ward down, so they know exactly where Drakthar is starting. Not that I think that's a particularly huge surprise that they'd be pathing towards the bot lane when your top laner is Cassante. But into the bot lane we go as Artemis is in so much trouble. Already on the run, taken low, one more auto attack. He has to use his flash. Disaster for Cerberus.
Absolutely, this should be a lane that actually works out quite well for them. But this time, I mean, it is style on the Xayah, so he's back on the prominent AD carry to really make a difference here. He gets a pick that is so strong in spot lanes in general, kind of dominating every bot lane pick whatsoever in the last times, and then not opting for the Zeri to match it. On the side of Cerberus means that they just go for the Sivir and want to work for these early shovings usually, but they can't just do it against Silent Sin to some extent. And this just means, of course, a very bad start for Cerberus yet again. And I mean, we have seen them in the series, but they win early game, but if they stop winning early game, they just kind of fall apart. So this is looking rough for them already.
Yeah, we got a picture-in-picture replay there, which is a bit interesting. But yeah, it is just the chunk out. So Cerberus now going to be pretty far behind in EXP, at least for Artemis. Funnily enough, we might now see Ron OP able to hit level 6 for a potential Herald fight.
It might be, because he got a little bit of XP right now, and there's no Artemis kind of trying to freeze his wave a little bit, as Pan already not having too much fun against the Fiora. Cassandra post nerf, I mean, I dare say. The time I saw Cassandra beating Fiora was actually before Cassandra was nerfed heavily, and now the pick kind of has fallen out of favor a little bit. It is still played in the major regions, so it is a pick we have to respect in general, but I'm not quite sure if it's a good matchup for Pan to play. He has absolutely bested Kiai in the first game, where Kiai, however, also came back quite significantly, so this is now also not looking too hot for them in general. I just want to see what Cerberus can do with his mid-jungle access in this game, because Ari and Vigo scale fine to the late game, but can also already start doing some damage earlier on, with Ari landing a charm and then Vigo following up all of his damage and then getting an early reset. Means that their mid lane jungle 2v2 is not that bad.
It's very true. They do spot the Nocturne as well, making sure that Levi can't surprise anybody, as he does finish his clear a little bit faster than the Viego, which is not a surprise whatsoever. But the bot lanes are safe. The junglers will not deploy anything after their first clear. Xin throws out a hook, doesn't quite land it onto Ron OP. The Cerberus bot lane are playing this one fairly safely, given their lack of summoners.
They do. At least they do that one. I mean, they wasted the summoner spells earlier on. They need to make summoners in the early game, as we said it before, so they at least better be able to do this one, as this is Cerberus with a small deficit right now. But I mean, you gotta say, like, we might have overblown the deficit in general, right? I mean, there hasn't been anything countable for GAM as of now, but they might just go for it if they then not engage. Then going for it with the Hex Flash, of course, is able to do so. But if it's just a summoner spell, it's not enough for GAM as well, because you usually want to punch it further.
In some trouble as the Boomerang Blade lands. He's got the shield up, but one more auto attack will do it, and it's first blood for Artemis. This man does not stop. Style going forward, wants one back, will get it. Does he pay with his life? Ron OP can't quite finish him.
I mean, Rakan just can't kill Xayah, right? It's just, he's too much in love for that one. Either way, yeah. Just makes sense. Either way, Artemis at least getting the 2v2 first blood. I mean, I was talking about it, right? It doesn't really countable advantage if it's just the Thunder spells, and Silver and Rakan still able to hold their own in the 2v2 in general. It was just a misstep earlier on at this time. It is actually them at least trading it 1-for-1. So with first blood reward being on server side, they can actually live with that one quite happily, as we see again how it played out. Artemis just using his Boomerang Blade, and it actually is him tanking up this dredge line, and now 1OP following up with a great entrance onto the Nautilus, and then just running down this surprisingly or seemingly tanky Nautilus. And then Artemis, of course, still falls prey to the feathers of style, as he can return the fire, and 1OP just can't get it over his heart, right? He can't kill his wife.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I wouldn't kill my wife. You'd never hear the end of it, after all. As There was a debate of, like, do you die for that? Do you go in and you give up an extra kill, but you deny a wave of XP? Maybe it's worth it, but in the end,
I think it is.
I don't necessarily think it's a huge deal. Cerberus do actually end up taking the first Drake. This is the first time in the series where they've actually gotten this first Drake. Ooh,
it
goes in. I don't know how much you want this. Style is able to pinch out Artemis, has the spell shield, manages to use it. Ron OP will finally die. Apparently, no hesitation from a wife to her husband.
Yeah, that's just a kind of life imitates art, right? Or in this case, the game kind of imitating life. either way, not speaking about this one too much, as it is actually Cerberus kind of also selling one OP a little bit. Right? We have seen Draktar kind of escaping north and Artemis escaping south. They weren't really interested in kind of baiting him out of the situation. They kind of accepted, okay, yeah, I guess one OP is the price for this Drake in general. And I mean, we can speak about it about Ocean Drakes, but it is a very good first Drake to have. Kind of make these winning lanes even more winning, make slightly losing lanes less losing. And as the screen freezes for me yet again, it is actually Cerberus with the first winning move of the early game. But GAM, however, are the small goated and they are skating well.
Yeah, and they want Draktar. They've caught him. They've frozen tombed him. They've killed him. Our Discord feed is having issues, so I'm casting off the Twitch stream.
Okay. Yeah, but like, why do you know this? You're so smart, Carrix.
I just predicted it. I'm that familiar. Down the bot side, we do have another scrap boomerang blade missing from Artemis. Will mean Style survives, but Cerberus really taking control on the bot side.
They do, and Style, despite not dying, still just has to reset for this one, so it's still some goal to win. And Zin actually getting caught out, and one of people just barely surviving, but there's a lot of control for the Cerberus bot lane. Good start for them, and Artemis now finding his groove, getting a huge CS lead on his own. Draktar didn't help him whatsoever in this lane. Draktar actually having a bad early game this time, with dying with his flash available, and him using it and still dying. But I mean, Artemis and 1OP, after this early game slip up, are performing right now.
Kiaya pushed under tower by Pun. That is a fairly even lane, all told, though. As really, it is sort of a map split at the moment. The top side of GAM, or not so much the top laner, but mostly the jungle and the mid matchup is going quite badly for Cerberus. But their bot lane is in a very strong position.
They are, they need to be. It's a bit like Winter Cerberus that won the title back then in the Mickey Mouse split, right? Actually being able to get the title off the back of Artemis, absolutely destroying every other Vietnamese ADC, as Cerberus is starting off this Herald, but there is a closing win from GAM.
Yeah, the trap is getting closed. Can they collapse on them? No. Frozen Tomb onto Draktar. He has no counterplay to it. He just gets absolutely deleted.
Yeah, Draktar no flash up. It's actually a sitting duck as long as he is on the Herald. It's an easy target for the side of Kati to just lock him down with the Ring of Frost. And this is not just also the kill, but also the Herald being leashed from Cerberus to GAM. And I just hate to say it, but it's a disaster yet again.
Yeah, and into the mid lane they go. The Rakan nearly gets out, but can't quite do it. Artemis will get feared up, can't fire the damage back in, does finally get the spell shield up. Ooh, Yado thinks about it, gets punished though, and the Q from the Nocturne finishes him. Oh, Cerberus have collapsed.
I absolutely did. I mean, I don't want to call the game over before it's really over, but it's definitely looking very, very one-sided right now. Lever even sniping 1OP with the dustbin over there. Saw him coming from a mile away, but can't do anything about it. And the Cerberus not really accepting the losses. Going for the Herald, they definitely shouldn't have gone for without the preparation being done in those solo lanes to go for the priority. And also those solo lanes not going well in general is kind of a worrying trend for them, as it is Cassandra losing early to Fiora, Ari losing to Lissandra. They are getting counter picked up to some extent, but still those are not hard losing lanes in general. And Cerberus, yeah, they just definitely get engaged on where they didn't want to be, and the paranoia from Levi strikes.
Yeah, and this is a well and true disaster as Artemis just managing to survive. Yado gets too big for his boots, caught by the stasis, burns his cleanse, but still goes down. Just a tragedy. And look at the gold graph.
Levi's the richest man. It's, I mean, in solo queue we always say it, but this time it's actually a jungle div. Just him having about 1.5 as much gold as Draktar had on the Viego, and he's not really making good arguments for himself to run in the lower bracket, as if we are assuming that they will lose this game, where maybe Ego might have to see his own return. I hate to say it because Draktar actually started the series off quite well, as Kati is face-checking here.
Kati's in a lot of trouble. That is going to be a kill. He ults himself to buy some time for GAM to potentially secure the Drake. Oh, no, never mind. The Drake isn't even alive. What am I talking about? Ignore me. But a kill is a kill, and Cerberus do manage to fight back.
But it's a shutdown also to Wallopy, which you don't really want to have either way. I mean, of course, go to the Viego would not have been ideal, but at least better in this situation. I mean, it was between those two. And not even getting this kill delivered to the right person after the status is very rough for the side of Cerberus. GAM now still in position to start off this Drake, maybe, as Kati has respawned. He doesn't have TP, so he has to walk all the way, but he might just be able to get enough time for this one, as Cerberus is now seemingly forcing the issue, but they aren't as decisive yet. They are only slowly starting it, and Kati has all the time in the world to rejoin.
Artemis greeted for tower plates here. This is a mistake that's actually happened a few times in the major regions. I can remember a particular example with Deft over in the LCK making this mistake. You didn't come. You greeted for tower plates, which meant Dragon survived for too long, and now you don't get Dragon.
Yes, and this is a composition where you definitely want to get this Drake self-stack win condition, because this is like the one thing that's still going in your favor right now. And now GAM also equals that, because currently right now they are not having any real weak points so far. And Cerberus, just like last game, not really finding an angle. I mean, it's not as disastrous as last game was, but it might just look this way 5 minutes later on, depending on what Levi can really focus with his paranoia in these next few minutes, with the next few casts that he can go this way. He's also going the Strikebreaker Nocturne way, which is of course the usual way you are going right now, is you just focus all on utility. You aren't really a huge tank or damage carry in both scenarios, so you just want to have this pick potential, and as long as Cerberus is looking like they're looking right now, they can easily get picked apart.
Yeah, they do, and it's just so tricky for Cerberus to really get anything going, to really find a route back into the game. Pun is going to be a very tanky lad when he eventually leaves the lane, but I don't even know if he can ever leave the lane, because Kiaya isn't going to. Kiaya is just going to split push all day.
Yeah, and here's Divine Thunderer, so he's already a god and already basically full build is what the salty solo queue players would say. And Cassandra can't really match that sustain anymore, and will eventually even get chipped on by the Fiora by now, because Fiora's already past the rough point, right? The first 3 levels where Cassandra can maybe dominate the lane, and that didn't even happen either, so Pun, similarly to last game where he was playing the Olaf into, I think it also was a Fiora, right? It was a Fiora. Already having not so much fun. And this game, it might be even worse, because with Olaf you at least have this remaining ounce of kill pressure if the Fiora makes a mistake, but with Cassandra, you just don't have the damage for it.
Kiaya does get a good chunk onto Pun, forcing him out of lane. Has TP, of course, so we should be able to get back in plenty of time for that minion wave. No worries whatsoever. GAM focused around the bot lane at the moment. They want to make a play onto this tower, and Cerberus are in no real position to reply unless they do commit Pun's TP down there. Which they're not going to.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are going to. And this just now means they can at least clear those waves. You see the turret plate difference, but it's so hugely in favor of GAM. They are absolutely clearing Cerberus out of the water with this one, and it's already them just getting the power spikes, but all the mythic items being completed, with the Strikebreaker being there, Everfrost for Lysandra, so she basically has an additional spell so far, while Yano is still struggling, right? And he, as good as he played the first 2 games, not really finding an angle in the last 2 games of the series, likely, as it is actually now Cerberus on the back foot yet again, and them really struggling to find anything.
It is extremely difficult, as a Herald will be spawning. Cerberus does at the moment have full control of this topside river. Can they catch Levi here? That would be pretty huge. The knockup lands, no spell shield, and Levi will be dead for the Herald. So Cerberus, just as we talk about it, do find themselves an angle as they get themselves a shutdown.
Unfathomably uncommon Cerberus W in this game, that they get this pickup and also can go towards this Herald. There's no chance to really steal as the smite is down, but GAM, considering how confident they are, they might just contest it anyway, at least look for the fight. It would be a 4v5 or 3v4 in this situation, and they are going for it.
Yeah, they're going to go for a fight here. Xin doesn't get caught by the charm. Pun should be able to play Bouncer easy enough with that all out, if he needed to, which he doesn't, and Strakthar will get themselves the Herald.
They get the Herald, and I don't know how 1OP died there, especially with Flash up. This seems kind of apparent to me, but either way, trading him for the Herald probably worth, as the paranoia is coming out. This probably won't be a bit fight, though, that they are safe.
They are going on. They want Pun. Pun flashing and not quite living. Does go down. A hook takes Xin very deep. Drakthar trying to fend them off. Will the tower survive? It will. Ooh, Levi barely does.
And it's so illegal that this dive is playable, right? Turrets are such a joke by now. This is kind of something done quite well. And Levi can just paranoia in the 16th minute and just actually play this dive out. The Featherstorm damage even being the one that actually killed the Cassandra. It's not even that much of a damage spell in general, but just used for the safety or just the feather setup itself. And this just shows what GAM can really do with Cerberus if they want to. They are 4,000 gold up right now. Herald Charge, making this a bit of a push towards this mid and T1 turret. But already GAM stampeding ahead, already got the first turret, and will get another one in the top side, while Cerberus struggles to find a full turret on their own.
Sorry, I just made the mistake of looking at chat. You guys have a great time over there. But it is a 5k gold lead for GAM as they are, very, very strong position. Mythics being completed. Style is 4-0 on this Xayah. The Hextech Drake is about to spawn, and I don't think Cerberus want anything to do with it.
Yeah, they probably don't. Hextech Drake is being taken by GAM, probably on spawn, and Cerberus not really having any chance to play gap against it. They, as bad as it sounds, probably need to give away this Drake, maybe even give away another Drake, and just hope to scale next to GAM, and even despite being outscaled, try it again at the 2-item breakpoint for the side of Artemis, maybe even the
Cerberus, I don't know about this one, guys. They're going to try and find the engage. The paranoia is there. They do manage to burst down Cardi. Who gets the dragon? It is Drakthar! And a good bit of damage onto Levi allows Artemis to clean him up. And I didn't have faith in Cerberus, but I should have backed the dogs as they get the dragon and 2 kills, Quincy.
Absolutely unbelievable that this is possible. It's just them mashing their balance and getting the first kill, then working with the reset from the Viego and actually getting the smite secure for Drakthar means another Drake for Cerberus, at least a little bit of a comeback fight for them. And GAM just kind of getting caught with the pants down. Carti, you'd see it in his overlay, right? He didn't even use his Frozen Tube, didn't use the healer team, pulled away from the spellbook. So that's definitely GAM just being caught sleeping. And Cerberus, they are not done yet.
Oh, Pun's in trouble. Going low, going down.
Yeah, going down. It's a turret in the mid lane, so at least a bit of map control for the side of Cerberus to get a little bit of an chance out in this game here, as it's just still overall, of course, a GAM's game to lose, but for the side of Cerberus, at least a bit to really work with, and Punch is getting caught down. He expected to be a bit more tanky on the Cassandra, but ultimately he just wasn't, and that's the 5th kill, I think, for Style, and he's absolutely showing us that Xayah in general is broken. It's not just Artemis being broken.
Artemis is pretty broken, though, you have to admit, Princey. As
maybe after the series.
This could, oh, god damn, maybe. Maybe, I think, honestly, if anyone's getting broken after this series, we might have to be very careful what Ego might do to Drakthar tonight for taking his spot, but we don't need to dwell on that, as this game could turn into a battle of the ADCs. Obviously, Style very far ahead in that regard at the moment. But it looks like that's where the gold is beginning to centralize.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's currently actually Carti, while he has a good series overall, despite getting outshined by Yado in the first games, this time him being down the power spike as he just now completed this hourglass, just now having even more tools to really make these fights hard to play for Cerberus, having his stasis once but also twice with the Sonias and also the Frozen Tomb makes it so much easier for them to play these fights. And Artemis this game not really preparing ahead of Style. It is ultimately still GAM's game to lose, I just keep saying it, and they can also look for these traps, and also with the paranoia from Levi are able to really find these picks in the side lane if they choose to go for those ones. And so far it's just Pun yet again struggling to find an impact. We see him in the top lane just now in the mini map as he's trying to shove the wave against Carti, but Carti's wave clear is just too good.
Pun on the run from Carti. No chance of an actual catch. But does show that Pun is really just not able to exist in the side lane. He has to run away from basically any threat, with the possibility of a paranoia Levi joining any little 1v1 scuffle.
Yeah, and he's just probably getting relegated to just be the all-out flank bot that he can maybe be if he finds a good TP ward to really TP towards, and then maybe get access to the backline, maybe get Style before he can use the Feather Storm. But this won't be quite easy. I mean, GAM is playing this game from ahead, so these wards will usually not be available for side of Cerberus. It will just get cleared out quite quickly. So this time GAM is slowly but surely taking control of this game yet again, despite having this small fumble around this Hextech Drake that we have earlier seen. I don't expect this to be the norm. I expect GAM to play much stronger towards these Drakes. However, they can still just choose to give away one more Drake. It wouldn't be a big problem for them to just scale 5 minutes more into this game and then play towards the Baron. They have the silent threat with the Fiora on Kiaya over there, and they can, with her just being on 2 items and even more right now, also stacking up the Ravenous Hydra, just be in a position where he can just blow up the map a bit more wide open and just have him on the side lane while the team threatens the Baron. He would have the TP for emergency situations, but usually he wouldn't even need to use those.
You would think not, but I'm just having a looking at the items. There's actually a potential window here where Style is not a full item ahead. He's only a crit cloak ahead of Artemis right now. If they can potentially find a fight before he can reset and potentially finish that, they actually are in a decent position.
I mean, that kind of sums up how doomed it really is for Cerberus, right? He's only a crit cloak ahead of Artemis, and Artemis being the player that they are really hoping for in general, kind of gets to sum up what Cerberus is really up for, because Pan isn't really Pan-denying this game. I mean, it's pretty obvious with him being on the Cassandra, and Cassandra being not a champion that he once was before. So Cerberus overall in a rough spot, and it is kind of like their hope that he still gets to like 3 items and more on the silver. I mean, he's going for, I think, Infinity Edge right now to really have the most damage output towards these squishy members, as we just now see what Style can do if he looks at him funny. And this is Artemis almost losing half of his HP bar. And it will just be him not going for Navois, but going for this direct auto-attack damage build, which is of course very beneficial to have the maximum amount of damage with the ricochets in the team fights. And he is maybe the hope that they really need.
And with the two GAM players, Kiaya and Levi, already in the Dragon Pit when it spawns, there's just no time for Cerberus to get over there. They are going to have to give this one up. Now, the objective in and of itself, not the worst thing ever to give up. It just makes it 2-2 in Dragons. That, in on its own, as I repeat myself, is not a death blow by any means. It just means oh no, hang on a minute. We'll have to talk about death blows again as in goes the Paranoia, but it's only onto Ron OP. A lot of ults being burned onto him. It is going to get them a catch, and Cerberus doesn't try and turn it around. So despite the resources going into the support, I think they don't mind too much. Here comes the second half of the engage. They catch Pun. He does nothing in the fight. Taken down. Artemis needs to start auto-attacking. So far, doing very little. Yado has to go into stasis to not die from an ignite. And Cerberus just get routed.
Yeah, and Cerberus just doesn't have the damage, but it's just GAM forcing front to back teamfights with Paranoia, which is unusual because usually you want to dive the backline with the knockdown, but they can just easily focus 1OP first, then go towards Pan. Nobody's really getting to hit anymore then because Artemis needs his frontline and doesn't quite get it as long as those two are down. So GAM getting 2 free picks with not even that great of a setup ultimately means that they can just go for those ones as long as the Paranoia is off cooldown. And I mean, for the next Baron, for the next Drake, will just be an easy setup for them. As you will see again how it plays out, it is just actually Levi targeting even 1OP directly over there, not really spell shading anything successfully, but just with Frozen Tomb combined, 1OP just dies. Pan has to buy some space and actually manages to trade his life for the situation. So it will just be this one, and they don't need to respect any kind of damage, right? The turret doesn't deal damage, Artemis doesn't get to hit, so it's 2-0 plus the turret for GAM, and the fight wasn't even that great for them. So very, very doomed for the side of Cerberus. Yado also falling down very low into the stasis, and now GAM just starts off the Baron, and Cerberus has to look for it.
Yeah, I don't think Cerberus can let this one go, and they are going to engage straight in. A good catch onto Cardi, but he has the stasis. They secure the Baron. Cardi, second round of stasis with the Hourglass. And oh no, Cerberus are just getting cleaned up. They were unable to get that initial kill. Levi will go down, but that's just a consolation prize. And Pun trades his life for it. Yado on the run. Kiaya bearing down on him. They don't even care. They force him out of the fight. They don't actually need to kill him. Artemis, again, unable to have an impact.
And Artemis just being the wave clear machine, but now can maybe try to prevent the game from ending, as Yado's also getting chased on. He can't recall it. Now 2 members of this might just be the last push from GAM, maybe. The Hextech Gate Chaser one is of course very funny to look at, and Kati actually manages to secure the kill, which of course means that GAM maybe isn't with enough members in the mid lane to really go for the ending push, but this will be Inhibitor. At least the Baron is already down, that the fight is won for GAM. They are very happy how this sequence turned out.
Yeah, and game 1 gave us some real hope for Cerberus, but this is much more what we expected coming into this series. There is a reason that most predictions were a pretty clear 3-0 for GAM.
Definitely looks to be the case, and we remember this first game, right? It was kind of Cerberus not even looking too clean in this one, and overall I think a very shaky performance from them. The thing, however, is like the most important question is if they really played overall worse or equal or better than we expected. I think actually they played kind of how we expected them in general, but the surprising part is just that they actually results-wise managed to get a single win in this situation. But I am very disappointed with how it really turned down south after this game 2, where it already looked like still a good draft from them, still a good early game from them, and then they just kind of collapsed quicker than I expected them to be.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame from Cerberus, but oh well. It gives me hope for their lower bracket run, honestly. You know, if they can play like Game 1 up against a Team Wales or an SBTC, of course, that series is tomorrow to decide who will be the upper bracket of our other 2 playoff teams. So make sure you're there. As in him falls, Style taking that one. He is absolutely massive. 3.5 items on the Xayah. Does get caught out a little bit, but Featherstorm is a pretty good button. Nocturne ultimate, buying them some space. Cardi again, just baiting with his own health bar. Pun tries to go in, uses the all out, tries to dash away, can't do it. Artemis is dead. Cerberus are going to get rounded up. They kill Style just to ruin his KDA, but Drakthar is unable to get it done in the back lines. Double kill for Cardi. GAM, are they going to try and finish the game? They probably can. And
they will.
They are going to push.
Wave Clear Machine is down. Artem is down. They don't need the Siege Commander and Style over there. They can still just easily go for the win right here. It is a 4 versus 1 push. 1 OP doesn't have any Wave Clear whatsoever. The Baron is still going strong for at least 2 more seconds on the side of GAM. But the next two is already down, and this will be the series.
And with that, we will be going into 3-1 for GAM as they lock themselves into the upper bracket with a dominant final game over Cerberus. That is the reason they were undefeated. That is the reason why they are the #1 team of Vietnam. And looking at that one, whoever wins of SBTC or Wales must be a little bit worried. As GAM, they still look a little bit unstoppable, Quincy.
That they do. And for Cerberus, I mean, they are now going to the lower bracket, and let's wait and see if they can play more like Game 1 and 2, or if they are more like in their current real form of the regular split. I hate to say this one, but it is just how it is, right? Them kind of looking lost against what GAM really brought to the table.
Absolutely. Now, we will be saying goodnight from myself, Carrix, and Quincy. We're done for the night. We are going to be throwing over to the desk. Marby and Rebel, take it away.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Good to see you. The series is now over, which is, I don't know, I'm upset about it because we had such a good first game from these two teams going 50 minutes and spanning and being like, oh, it was a Cerberus way. And then just to have GAM come back and crush them in 3 straight consecutive games is disheartening to say the least. Again, I think they said it best that like maybe Cerberus has something to build upon when it comes to the remainder of playoffs, but I don't know. What do you think, Mobby? What was the series like?
Yeah, it definitely feels like what sort of seems to happen is GAM just Cerberus loses a little bit of faith in themselves as the time goes on, and especially players like Yado and Ron OP, they sort of if things start going wrong, they sort of spiral pretty quickly, and this has always been a problem for them in a lot. There's been a problem for them in a lot of series, and sort of showed up once again today. Drakthar as well, so I think adding to that a little bit. They tried to make a few things happen early this time around. It went okay, but once they got caught out at the Rift Herald, they just sort of took their foot right off the gas pedal, and with GAM in control, they just absolutely smashed it. And I gotta once point to Cardi. I think this Lissandra pick, sort of a return to his roots from when he first joined GAM, where we'd often see him on the set on these playmakers in the mid lane that were to set up the team. Lissandra is a bit best of both worlds. It's a mage, but it's also a playmaker. So I think it's been a good pick for them. And in those last 2 games, he was able to break out of the mid lane and completely dominate the map.
Yeah, the wave control that it's got over top the Ahri, and then thus the map control that the champion brought, was definitely something that I do not think that Cerberus was ready for in any capacity whatsoever, which is nice as a little bit of a nod to saying, hey, GAM's got a little bit something prepared for playoffs instead of having basically nothing and going back to everything that they've been working on. But it wasn't the greatest of showings from GAM, but again, I think I'm still waiting to see what their full form looks like, because they still have the remainder of the split. They still have MSI, and I'm hoping to see them at some point just start sprinting, start at like full, max throttle, see what that could be. Because the whole end of the split has been a little bit more lax for GAM, and this series included. That game 1 didn't feel like it was necessarily losable. I would have been shocked if they lost game 2 either. Like, this could have easily been a Cerberus 2-0 to start off the series. And while I don't think that would have been impossible for GAM to make a reverse sweep, especially after our 3rd and 4th game, them asleep at the wheel a little bit to kick off the series. To me, I want to see that. Where does the jitter happen? Where does the actual like GAM kick in as like they are the dominant force? Now we get to take this into MSI.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great sort of showing, especially from one of our favorites. We really wanted them to put on a good showing to give us a bit of hope. Now, granted, this could be a bit of that wake up call that has been needed, but because they've gone undefeated in the regular season, they dropped a lot of games, but still going undefeated, you kind of might let them get a bit lax, and they've I hope definitely we see them step up a little bit up against whoever they face in the upper bracket and try and level up as they move towards MSI.
And we get to see, this is our bracket, the 3-1 puts GAM into the semifinals, which happens 1 week from today, where they're going to be playing the winner of tomorrow's game in Team Wales versus SBTC Esports, as those two already played 3 times this season, and Wales has won 2 of those series, including the tiebreaker, which should be a way more exciting series. That's really exciting one. I'm happy. I think everybody's going to be really, really exhilarated for that one, because those 2 teams, if they're in playoff form, are going to be awesome. And notably, Cerberus obviously drops down into the lower bracket 1. You can see that at the very bottom on the left side of your screen, as well as the loser of tomorrow's game, and the loser of that, which happens on Sunday, will be out of playoffs completely. So you can still make this bottom bracket run happen. Cerberus, I think, again, I wasn't super convinced of them walking into playoffs. I think with a couple of the late season wins, as well as that performance against GAM, I don't think they're out of conversation against SBTC or Wales, whoever it is that they end up playing in that first round of playoffs, which is better than I could have said. If they got 3-0'd by GAM and they didn't look like a team at all, I feel like they would have been the easy to just write off and say, hey, they're probably not making it anywhere near finals. But given that performance, especially after the first 2 games, if you had cut it after 2 games and said, hey, this team is like what you're looking at, that would be something to be a little fearful of.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They put on enough of a show that makes me think like maybe we can find something like when in their first series against Team Wales, where Artemis was able to just Artemis and Ronopi were able to just completely destroy Vit and B in their laning phase, and they knew how to snowball from that. I think you could maybe see something like that happen once again, given they put on pretty impressive early games, at least at the start of the series. So, yeah, they're definitely not down and out by any means, but I would definitely say they are looking like they're definitely looking like underdogs, even when it comes to making a lower bracket run, and that's not a good look for this. That's not what you want to hear if you're a Cerberus fan. So we're gonna have to see if they can piece it back together, try and make things come alive for themselves, get back on the wagon, etc.
And that'll be the end of the day here for us here at VCS English. It's been a fun day, and I thank you for everybody. Thank you, our producer, for adding the duck noise, because that's not cringe in any capacity whatsoever. Tomorrow, same time, beginning of the day. I can't do time zones, so don't ask me. But same time as the starting time today, same time as the starting time the entire back half of the split. SBTC East taking on Team Wales, and we finally get the answer to the question, who wins in a fight, a whale or a chicken? There is only one way to find out the answer to that question, and that is to show up tomorrow and to watch the series between the 2, as one of them will be going on to take on GAM, and the other will be fighting for their life alongside Cerberus in that bottom bracket on Sunday. We'll see you again tomorrow.